Yong Cheon-pang was able to first appear in this lawless world when he was 18 years old. He said that if he wants to fight with him, then he should drink more of his mother's milk and then come back because he is not worthy of an opponent like him. This was told to him by a very famous warrior whose name was Chon Salma. It was this warrior who was able to kill more than 300 people in another province. The guy with red hair said that this is all true and therefore he should immediately give his honor and respect to a person like him. But it was already too late and they began to take out their blades in order to fight one-on-one and prove that they deserve better. He said that now he would have to ask for his head because he immediately had to pay for everything that he had done with his lousy hands. The older ones didn't want to fight, but he understood that now he would have to cut off the head of this boy who so simply wanted to kill him. He got very angry and said that someone else is too small to fight against him. A young Cheon-pang was ready to do anything to kill him. The battle was really very difficult and no one understood how it would end because both opponents wanted to win. Due to the fact that they were very good masters, the earth began to crumble under them, and this was quite logical due to the fact that they were killing everything around very much. The guy jumped over his head in order to break his head from his shoulders because she wanted to do it from above. After all this way, he would have had a much better chance. He screamed and wanted to do everything to get victory because he understood that he had to have it in his pocket at any cost despite the fact that he could die. His opponent began to show that he was an unusual warrior and also received some special ability with which he wanted to prevent all this. The guy ran at him because he understood that he had no other choice but to attack him at that moment. This was the best moment to end all this. The first blow occurred and one of them began to bleed because he could not parry such a strong blow from his opponent. There was too much blood and everyone understood that whoever did this would really never be able to win. Yong Cheon-pang was able to kill this man, but he still had a little to himself because he didn't want to leave this world so easily and he wanted to take revenge on him. Yong Cheon-pang said that when he goes to hell, he must tell the most important person in that environment that Yong sent him here, Cheon-pang, who was born into the divine family of heavenly dragons. It was in this way that this rival was the first killed person against whom Yan could even raise the sword Cheon-pang, although he was only 18 years old. After that, he didn't want to just waste time and had already managed to accomplish many feats. He killed a lot of people. Despite the fact that he was supposed to protect them, he would no longer be left for the fact that he became a demon himself. But when he turned 55 years old, he resisted the invasion of the heavenly demon palace and the mystical group alone with his heavenly dragon sword. The residents of this city said that he was just a legend who was able to save them. These are the kind of problems that they will have to remember about him for the rest of their lives. They believed that he was actually the strongest person in the world. After all, he had the heavenly dragon sword, which everyone had already heard a lot about. But one day when 30 years had already passed on the way to the alliance, he left his family, and he also suddenly disappeared, which caused a lot of problems. The sage sat surrounded by trees and thought about what he should do now. After all, he understood that life would be over very soon. He sat on the mountain and wondered what kind of place this was because he understood that it was completely different from all those he had seen before, and this place really gave him new strength. This place was somehow strange because he understood that it was precisely because he was there that he felt a completely different surge of energy. Unfortunately, he realized that his head was already filled with various bad things, and he could not remember who he really was and why he was here. The old man was thinking about all this, and suddenly a child came up to him and asked why the master was just standing there. The guy jumped on him, and the old man was shocked that this one would get hot and decided to do such an audacity. The kid began to hug his master and said that he missed him very much because they had not seen each other for a very long time, for several years. He continued to think about his student and what he was able to learn during this time, but he didn't remember anything at all. The boy told him to quickly go inside, otherwise his clothes would get wet from the dew, and the old man told him that it was time to do so. They entered the house, and the house looked very cozy as usual. A house in the village that had absolutely everything to eat properly and continue to exist. The old man began to look at absolutely everything that was there and realized that it was really very cozy here. He thought about who could live here and realized that this person could really bring him a lot of benefit earlier. Yong Cheon-pang couldn't believe that, unfortunately, he was some kind of master of this child who didn't understand what he was doing at all. At this time the boy had already managed to put a lot of food on the stove so that they could eat normally because the time had already come. The old man liked that the boy could learn to cook food with me, and it smelled very tasty, which means that he was very thrifty. The boy, because he knows that this is his teacher's favorite soup which he makes from pheasant. The old man even felt very awkward because there was definitely something wrong here and he couldn't remember it at all, because if this guy had been his student this wouldn't have happened. Young Cheon Pang began to think that he could really be a master. After all, this guy believed in him and looked at him with very devoted eyes. The old man began to ask him if he was really his master. And the boy replied that 100% because he had already been able to teach him a lot. The old man decided to ask him a few questions so that he could understand the whole situation, and also told him to tell him about him how they first met. The guy began to remember those times when they were able to encounter him for the first time, and it was really very interesting. He said that these events took place 3 years ago, and he was returning from the cathedral and did not at all understand that something could happen to him. It was then that he was able to see his master for the first time, who was at the Hungry Dragon Pass, and watched how people lived here. After that, he looked at him carefully and asked him several questions in order to understand what kind of student he was. The guy told all this with great pleasure and said that after that they touched him and asked if he would like to become his student. Young Cheon Pang couldn't believe that it was once him, because he didn't love anyone at all except himself, because everything was indifferent to him. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember everything that happened to him at all, due to the fact that he somehow lost his memory. The old man began to ask him what his husband had taught him all this time, and the guy replied that he was able to teach him martial art. But this already made the old man very angry, because he understood that if he was actually able to teach him martial arts, then it would be big problems for him. Young Cheon Pang continued to think about what he could teach this guy over the past years, because he did not understand at all where he was and who he even was. He noticed that this child was somehow strange, and he didn't study martial arts at all because he doesn't remember it, but unfortunately anything could have happened. The old man began to turn around and leave because he said that he was not the master he was talking about, and the guy begged him to stay. He said that he was definitely his student, and he tried with all his might to leave his master because he understood that without him he would be completely weak, but with him he would be able to conquer different peaks. But after the guy touched him, he felt that some kind of electrical connection was happening between them, and then he was really able to understand that he was studying this art. The old man felt that this guy had energy, and his inner strength felt like a wild, excitable horse. The child continued to hold it, and it was difficult for the old man to control it or thereby understand that this power was really good in him. His eye felt that now he would have to stay again. He saw that this guy had very hidden potential. This force was able to pierce through him with a lightning flash, and he felt that he immediately needed to stay in order to keep everything in balance. He felt like this guy contained a bunch of different energy-capable things that would give him a future. The old man grabbed him and began to ask how this was even possible, because he thought that he had not told anyone about his different abilities that he used. Young Cheon Pang could not understand how this was possible and how all this energy circulated through his body, because this was a rather complex process that not everyone had and not every person was suitable for it. The old man continued to believe that he had not trained this man and thought that some teacher could have made a mistake in training. If he were in his right mind now, he would accept everything as it is and understand what the reason is, but he cannot make the right decision because he is very weak. The old man began to ask him for forgiveness and said that he really did wrong to him, for which he skates very hard and would like to change everything. The guy felt that there was some kind of hidden love between them, like a master for a student. The guy crushed on him because he loved him very much, because he spent all this time with him and he became like a dad to him. Meanwhile, in one very important building, very serious issues were discussed about the fact that someone's father did not go to the Great Mountains. The man said that now the situation looks exactly like this, and it's also hard for him to realize it because the great Mr. Young Cheon Pang was supposed to meet his grandfather at the border. However, nothing happened. The elder realized that most likely he wanted to go and undress with the thug of this army, but unfortunately he had already disappeared somewhere. The younger one replied that if the elder allowed him, he would at least send the Silver Dragon troops to find out everything, because the situation there really was not the simplest. Junior and I tell him the arguments about the fact that this detachment is most suitable because they will be there secretly. The old man said that he understood everything perfectly, so he gives permission because the younger ones were really able to come up with a very cunning plan. After that, another person joined them and lowered the glass of their drink, which most likely contained alcohol. In the huge red hall, there were different people who did not want to give themselves away at first because they looked different. Masha said that from now on he must quickly search at least every corner of the earth and find his grandfather because he is very important to him. The servants accepted his order and were able to quickly run to him. After all, they were just ordinary servants. 10 months had already passed since he arrived at this hut, and it was really difficult for the old man to get used to it because he did not understand at all where he was. Well, unfortunately, the fog continued to be in his head, and he could not remember anything at all. Although he thought that everything was under control, the old man continued to look very stupid, and he did not understand what to do next in this life because he was very tired of various problems. He continued to do various exercises while he was in this village because he was completely bored without any work. The guy who was his student was called Lee Son, and he said that he is now 14 years old and he is ready for all the problems in life. He is very grateful that this guy takes very good care of the old man, but however he is still not completely sure that he is his student. He observed all his techniques and understood that most likely this was not his fighting style, but he needed to fully understand this and not make hasty conclusions. The old man understood that the most important thing was to fully understand what he was able to teach him during all this time while he was with him. This guy really had some incredible techniques, and he always wanted to prove that he was the best. The table began to ask him what kind of martial art this was, and the guy replied that this was the technique of the 6 fists that taught him to be strong. Yong Cheon-pang began to think about the fact that only the strongest warriors really had this technique, and most likely that this was true. And the guy was telling everything truthfully. The old man turned around and began to walk away from him because he needed to completely convince himself that this was actually his student. Aging did not understand how he should completely transfer all his martial arts skills to this guy. Unfortunately, he couldn't remember a single way. And this was the worst thing that could happen because he will have to do it when you do it. But still he understood that he shouldn't lose his temper even though his head doesn't remember anything, but his body must definitely adapt, and so he began to do the first techniques. Fortunately, he was able to activate his abilities, with the help of which he was able to punch the ground with his foot, which showed his skill. He activated the 6 fists technique, and he did it better than anyone despite the fact that he was already old and didn't remember anything. After all, he had not used his powers for a very long time. And for him it was very pleasant to remember the old things, and his technique was simply perfect. Despite the fact that he forgot absolutely everything, his body remembered every movement. Such a powerful force was able to break through a tree that was very close, and the student could not believe that this was his master. The guy was happy and said that he was the strongest person he could ever see, but the old man said that this was the most basic technique that he could learn. Yong Cheon-pang continued to think about how he could teach this boy to do absolutely the same thing. After all, he was still very small and did not at all understand the complexity of this work. But suddenly he was able to remember one very important and also beautiful thing, namely that raising children can be a little easier if you use the right strategies. He understood that if he wanted to teach this guy absolutely all techniques, then he needed to use absolutely all methods. He raised a huge tree and said that it has long been known that art is best learned through practice, and therefore he will have to face difficult tasks in life. But the guy was calmly ready for this and divided this tree in no time because he was already able to learn a lot during the period while he was taught all this. The tree spilled into small pieces thanks to the fact that the guy believed in himself and never gave up despite the fact that he had very little experience. The tree was so fragile that with just one touch of his hand he could kill it into several pieces. He activated the very 6 fists technique with which he thought that he could so easily get rid of all the problems. Fortunately, he handled it completely perfectly and was able to chop the wood so that they were ready for any problem that might arise due to weather conditions. The kid understood that some completely unknown energy was pulsating in his body, with the help of which he was able to become much stronger than before. Most likely he realized that the reason was that he was able to take absolutely all the right points in order to circulate energy. But everything turned out to be a little deeper, and he met this guy about a year ago, and after the disappearance of his mentor, he went to collect medicinal herbs, but suddenly a thunderstorm began. So he had to hide among the stones. And then a pleasant aroma suddenly wafted from the cave. After all, he had not eaten for a very long time, but he wanted to refresh himself. He noticed how there was some kind of tree on the top of which there was some very tasty fruit that had to be eaten in order to continue to live. He thought that most likely it was something very tasty, so he immediately wanted to run there and eat it. He came up and took it into his own hands to examine it, and only then thought about what to do. After that, he bit this apple, which was pink in color, and you will feel that he was no longer at all concerned about the thunderstorm because he felt something begin to happen in his body. He was completely enveloped in heat, and for several days he could not even move, and then he realized that there was something in his body and that something was very dangerous. It was very difficult for him to control his body, and he wanted to end it immediately because he felt a very strong pain that haunted him all the time, and he wanted to get rid of it immediately. He realized that over time his body could gain energy, and thanks to this, he became a completely different person. Still, this guy was able to plant a plum tree that has 7 energy flows within itself. With the help of these flows, he can circulate energy. Yong Cheon Pang assumed that most likely energy appeared in his body at the most opportune moment thanks to it, because there are so many amazing things in the world. This fruit was truly very amazing, and no one really understood how it works because it grows together completely enveloped in energy. The old man went outside and said that 6 months had already passed since he had been here, and he was really very pleased to watch everything that was happening here. He understood that if you go down from these hills at a distance of 30 minutes from this place, you can see a fairly large village, but for some reason no one from it comes here. Yong Cheon Pang began to assume that there were inhuman villains living there who should immediately leave this place. Meanwhile, the same warriors who were sent by the younger important man had already begun to move closer to the place where Yan was Cheon Pang. In this city, everything was as usual, and people were trading ordinary goods that had to be sold immediately in order to receive at least some income and continue to live. The old man also came to the city to look at new things and also food because he understood that this was a new life. And he liked absolutely everything that happened here because he saw that people were selling very different and new goods here. And he really didn't like the fact that they didn't recognize him, because people didn't know who he was at all, and even though he lost his memory according to his student, he was supposed to live here for several years. Suddenly, after a few seconds, they were able to recognize him, and some people who were of a young age began to ask if he was training a guy named Son. The guys began to ask why he hadn't come here for so long. After all, they were only able to recognize him with difficulty during all this time that had passed. He understood that this was a great opportunity to find out what was going on here, and so he wanted to ask something. Meanwhile, he did not have time to do this, and his student ran with all his might along with some bag containing some objects. Meanwhile, the student began to ask his teacher what he was doing here, and he replied that he had been waiting for him for a very long time. The parents told this boy to return home with his teacher because it would rain soon and they might get hurt. The boy wanted with all his might to get back as soon as possible. After all, he had not trained for a very long time, and this only stimulated him to greater rewards. What if everyone started discussing them and thought that these people were really very similar to each other, but the old man was really completely different? It's not surprising that the guy doesn't recognize him at all, the old man, and now when he was only 10 and it looked like a man came who was stealing everything. One of them said that everyone should listen to him carefully, and if this old man appears again, they must deal with him so that the guy does not understand anything. His henchmen, the snakes, understood all this and understood that they would have to fulfill the duties assigned to them by their leader. In any case, everyone thought that he was able to meet a good man, but no one could fully understand that this old man was really like that. The guy was very happy with this teacher, so it's better not to disturb them. After all, they are quietly enjoying the life they deserve. Meanwhile, in the very house from which the hunters came, someone thought for a very long time about where that man had disappeared. Junior, call back this army. After all, it will suffer for nothing because these all understood perfectly well that if grandfather wanted to hide, then no one would find him. Everyone understood that they needed to continue the search because grandfather was a very important person in their system which could not be violated throughout the years. They continued to discuss this and realized that it was grandfather who had really caused a lot of problems for them, and now he would have to hunt for him. After that, they understood that if they continued to whistle searches and could not find this person, then the rest of the provinces would be able to understand that something was wrong here. One of them said that he also agreed with his head because that's why it was necessary to act, and that's why it was necessary to first recall that same Silver Dragon army so that everyone would be happy. The other one implied that it was also good that this could happen because he understood that he could go to this place. In the meantime, maybe the fog in the old man's head had not yet developed, and he was constantly thinking about who he was. He himself did not understand why he was able to forget everything in the moment, but at the same time he felt that he was a good master. After that, he decided to demonstrate his capabilities in order to remember his youth. This old man really had talent from childhood, and he loved to do all these activities. The strength that he had was not equal to practically anything, because his capabilities were much greater than he had ever imagined. Thanks to his strength, he was able to cut this mountain into several parts, and it was able to explode despite the fact that it tried with all its might to hold on. He was glad that he was able to learn such a technique because with the help of it she will now become much more dangerous and people will appreciate it. He understood that if he continued to train he would remember absolutely all his skills, but suddenly he noticed that for some reason it was noisy in the village. After this the old man decided to immediately come there because he understood that if there was some noise there then this was some reason to go there. Soon he was able to come there to figure it out because he understood that this could give him incredible chances to become a recognizable person. He began to observe everything that was happening there and noticed that the sun was somehow very bright and everything around was shining. He liked being there and he watched everything like a spy because he did not want to show his person. People began to worry very much because it turned out that the old man was cutting some kind of sacred stone and they thought that God was angry. He knew his best chance would be to pretend he didn't do anything because people would be angry with him. The old man decided to just return because he understood that there would be very big problems if anyone found out about him. Meanwhile, the children continued to play and each of them said the very words that reminded the old man all his life. What he heard really made him think about becoming an excellent teacher for all those who were here. He felt that these children were not just talking about his techniques. This meant that he was not the last person. Yong Cheon-pang was even shocked that these children remembered such ideal techniques that he used in his youth to become a strong warrior. The old man also understood that if this technique could be changed then it could become useful and everything that he heard from them was true. It was from that day that the mentor began to teach a cool technique to his student who began to become stronger right before his eyes. The old man told him that he simply couldn't handle it, so the guy had to pull himself together and immediately show everything he could do because it was no good. The guy didn't like the fact that he couldn't do anything and he began to apologize to his mentor for not being able to live up to his expectations. That is why the old man decided to show everything that he was trying to convey to him, and what he showed was wonderful. Yong Cheon-pang himself was even tired of what he was teaching because in reality it's not so easy to be a guru. The old man said that this would not work at all and they would just waste their time. Therefore they now need to use another method to improve it. He told him to immediately come face to face with his mentor, because this is how he can see that he is not yet ready for such beats. The guy was shocked by what he heard. I couldn't believe that his mentor offered him such a dangerous game in which he could die. But he didn't care at all, and therefore he agreed to everything that his mentor, who had vast experience, offered him. After that, they continued to train day after day, and the weather was great all the time because they lived in a wonderful place. The guy trained every day because he wanted to become stronger, because he understood that no one could do it for him, and therefore he had to try. He tried his best to follow all the rules and fight correctly against his mentor, but he greatly underestimated his opponent. Yong Cheon-pang was very upset because she saw that the guy was not yet ready to fight against him and he was able to dodge with just strength and thoughts. The teacher told him to try to put in a lot more force so that he could accurately hit and knock out his opponent. Such words only charged him, and he wanted to do all this immediately because he understood that he was ready to do it. He decided to make another blow to his teacher which went vertically into the beard, and he thought that with the help of such force he could really cope with them. The teacher understood that he was trying to hit him with a very simple technique which he had already been able to predict in advance. That is why he was able to calmly dodge after such an ordinary blow that he wanted to deliver. And his fist flew very close with his head, but the teacher was able to calmly think through everything because he would already be a very experienced fighter who had nothing to do with catching his hand. He calmly stopped this guy and told him to immediately continue training because he was not ready yet. That's why the teacher decided to give him a little punishment and hit him on the floor to make him angry. But after he was able to knock him down, he really realized that his student had progressed very much and he was almost able to hit him. The teacher told him that he was already much better, but he needed to continue training so that he could become much stronger because otherwise no one would save him. The teacher told him to keep attacking him again because he wanted to see progress. The guy even himself understood that everything was completely different for him, and he was not at all afraid to be the first to attack as usually happens in combat sports. But unfortunately he didn't succeed at all due to the fact that the teacher was much more experienced and he was able to take him out in every round with just one blow. The guy didn't understand how to act. Then he saw that the teacher was not hurt at all, unlike him. After all, he was already practically beaten. That is why the guy got even more angry and was ready to crumble everything around because he understood that for him this was not the limit, and he activated a special movement. tell him that it was time for him to learn about a new technique and thought that he could defeat his mentor so easily. His technique was truly outstanding, but it was necessary to understand that the teacher was much older, so even a U-turn would not have helped him. He jumped in the hope that he could defeat his teacher. Although it was quite stupid because the teacher already understood everything and didn't even move. But after that, Yong Cheon-pang began to think about how he should proceed. After all, this guy came up with something interesting. But for the teacher it was quite simple, and he had already managed to block the blow that was flying from above. The teacher understood that his student had become much stronger, and he was really able to give him a little rebuff, with the help of which he suffered a little. Yong Cheon-pang was even a little angry at what his student was doing because he saw that he was using some cunning techniques to defeat his mentor who had done a lot for him. But after that, the teacher praised and said that his attacks have some effects. If he still has hidden powers, then he should bring them out. The guy was more confident than ever and told his teacher to be careful because he greatly underestimated him. And he had to understand that an experienced student was standing in front of him. After the teacher was able to praise him, his whole body gained strength, and at one moment he was able to get excited by such phrases thanks to the teacher. The guy was confident that he could do it again, and so he ran with all his might to his teacher to let him know that he had raised a good warrior. The blow was quite strong, and even he himself did not expect that this was even possible because he was an ordinary guy. The teacher stood opposite him and noticed that the energy that was in him was very different from all that he saw every day. And for him it was something new. The teacher felt like his student was already watching him because he wanted to deal with him because that was the order of the teacher himself. The guy was already very close to him, and the old man couldn't even predict that he would use this technique. But fortunately he was able to stretch out 2 fingers with which he wanted to activate his shield because he had specially saved it for this. The guy hit this shield and unfortunately suffered very badly because the teacher already assumed that this could happen. From such a strong shield, the guy flew into the wall and felt that his entire body left an imprint on this huge stone in which he flew. It was very painful for him to realize that he had lost and also suffered despite the fact that he tried his best. This did not stop him. Therefore, he must always move towards his dream, and with the help of the fact that he has a strong character, he was able to break this wall and rise. The teacher couldn't believe that this was possible. After all, this guy continued the battle despite the fact that he showed him where his real place was. The guy began to ask him for forgiveness because the old man was really very angry with him. Yong Cheon-pang told him to already learn to control his emotions because this is not the first time he is trying to fight like this. Yong Cheon-pang understood that fortunately he mastered the technique of the strongest energy of self-defense. So he was able to defend himself, but he almost went to the next world, and therefore it was hard for him to realize that his student was already capable of this. The old man was very upset, so he told his student to come back with him because she had already had enough practice today and they should rest. After that, they continued to go to their home to rest after such a hard training where the two of them were really tired. Yong Cheon-pang continued to think about the fact that 4 years had already passed since he lived with this guy and he was already able to understand a lot. Then the same guy called him to ask about one very important matter because he wanted to know something already. Suddenly some handsome boy approached him and asked his mentor what he was doing here because he didn't understand who he was at all. The mentor began to ask him who he really was because he was very worried that they would find him. The guy said that this is his student whom he loves very much, and most likely the teacher is already very lost in the mountains, so he should behave well. The boy said that he too sometimes cannot find his way even though he is here every day. The rest understood that he was really telling the truth because all the roads here are similar to one another. And for him these were really problems. After that, the old man continued to walk with this guy and they discussed some very interesting things because he understood that 4 years had already passed. The guy began to understand that most likely his mentor began to have problems with his head, and unfortunately he would have to accept them because he understands that nothing can be done about them. But suddenly the guy began to look at his mentor again and realized that most likely this was not him and everything was even fine with his teacher. The old man understood that this was already very dangerous because this was not the first time he had been lost. And for him this was really a problem. But the guy tried to somehow fight it. From that moment on, another year passed and the fog in his head gradually became thicker and thicker, and he suffered for a very long time from the fact that his head was clogged with such stupid problems. After this, the mentor climbed one of the mountains to sit there because he wanted to think for a very long time about what was happening in his life. This old man began to look at this moon as if he were a real wolf. As soon as he saw it, the fog clouding the old man's mind dissipated for a while, and then he realized that this was his only cure. But then he had another problem. The memories of the guy with whom he spent 5 whole years completely disappeared, and he did not understand at all what he was doing here. The old man began to examine himself because he did not understand where his combat clothes had gone, and this indicated that the problem was much larger than they only thought. Yong Cheonpang could not control his mind, and unfortunately he really was at his best due to the fact that he spent his life without society for a very long time. She also understood that 30 years ago he dealt with his own hands in order to defeat the villains who prevented him from normally protecting all the innocent people who deserved better. The old man understood that the reason could be found out later, but what he was doing on this mountain really began to confuse him very much. The guy continued to ask the mentor where he was because he was very worried about the fact that the old man would never return again because he could not control himself. The guy began to search for him with all his might to find his teacher because he loved and appreciated him very much. He also understood that the old man was no longer in his right mind. Therefore, everything had to be done to ensure that he was next to him and was unharmed. It was very difficult for the guy to realize that he had practically lost his mentor, whom he loved very much, but unfortunately that was life. Therefore, he just had to come to terms with it. Unfortunately, the guy started looking for his mentor's photo absolutely everywhere, but he was nowhere to be found. And this happened 5 years after the mentor appeared in these mountains, and since then few people remembered him. Meanwhile, the guy came to the market to have a good meal and buy meat for himself in order to relax. The seller began to ask him why he was still looking for his mentor. After all, he had most likely already died or fled somewhere. But still he decided to support him and told him not to give up because he had to believe he understood that he would never meet anything like this again. The guy was already very disappointed because he understood that, in fact, it was a truth that was hard to come to terms with because his teacher meant a lot to him. Suddenly they heard that some very strange noise was happening here which immediately needed to be dealt with. Some robbers came to take away what did not belong to them. After all, they wanted to get as much loot for themselves as possible. They were able to completely destroy some shop where the old man suffered enormous damage due to the fact that they were able to completely destroy it, but he offered them a month in installments. Such words greatly angered the chief of them, and he said that this old man had already gone completely crazy because he owed him a lot. He grabbed this old man by the scruff of the neck and said that a lot of interest would accrue in a month, so he had to return everything immediately. And now the man began to think about whether to forgive this old man because he was already very tired of dealing with this and buying new things for himself. He was not happy with such long dates, so he said that it would be so easy to die and start beating this old man. Nobody liked the fact that this was happening, but suddenly the seller began to hold the very student who wanted to immediately deal with all this. The seller, who was his friend, said that if he intervened, then he would become just ordinary meat that would be thrown out far and wide. Unfortunately, people had to borrow with interest from these people in order to continue to exist. That is why no one can protect them. This impudent man took another bat to finish off this old man, whom he no longer wanted to see alive. He began to swing his arms and said that today this old man will go to that color because he is already tired of all this. Everyone began to worry very much because now he would just kill a person for no reason in front of everyone. But suddenly someone shouted, "Enough is enough," and this guy who wanted to kill the old man began to be very indignant. He didn't understand who dared so much. The guy could not approach this old man in order to protect him. After all, he did not want him to die completely against his own will. People were very happy that he had found a man who was able to intercede and would soon put an end to everything. This guy was ready to fight him because he understands that he completely without any rights began to kill a person and infringe on him in front of others. The main thing was very indignant, and with this we immediately figure out what kind of person decided to show such impudence. The guy got angry and said that he should immediately get away from him, and the other opponent began to be directly afraid because he understood that there would be problems with him now. But still he was confident in himself and therefore went into battle in order to defend his honor. They began to call him names without any rights. He began to beat him with a special bat, but the guy was much stronger and he was easily able to break this bat by just placing his head. Everyone was shocked that she could so strangely break into small pieces right in front of everyone. This man was in great pain and he threw out his broken grudge, which he was able to break with his head. And his opponent was standing right on his knees in front of him, which meant that he was already able to calmly defeat him. And people were shocked that this man was really able to defeat this main commander who all the time told them how to live and what to do. you. And suddenly the guy began to get very upset because he remembered the words of his mentor who said that there was no need to use his power at random. But his opponent didn't want to just tout himself like that, and he stood up many because he said that he should immediately tell what he was using, that he could smash the bat with his head. He did not at all expect that this could happen, but that man's foot was already very close to the face of this impudent guy with red hair. The student was able to send him to hell and far away, and the blood from his mouth was just some kind of stream that never stopped ending. He threw him straight into the wall, and he didn't understand how this was even possible because he was one of the strongest among them. His friends began to get very angry because they understood that this guy was able to throw out their main teacher, whom they respected very much. That is why they decided to attack him, although it was completely unreasonable. After all, they were much weaker than they were taught, which I just finished off. The guy understood that now he would have to fight with weaker opponents. He was screwed a lot more. Therefore, it was necessary to understand the whole situation correctly. After a few seconds, he was able to cope with absolutely every one of them who just decided to attack him, and that is why it was not difficult for him. He was able to throw them far and wide so that you would understand that they were bound by a slightly stronger opponent than themselves. And no one understood how he could do this because everyone thought that he would lose to this army. The most important thing of them was that they couldn't believe who he was and why he had such power that no one could change. The guy with red hair lay there and realized that now he would have to do something different in order to make a living, but this man was so generous that he even threw him money. He told him to definitely take it away and never again become a master of this family because he was worthy more than this impudent man. He took this money and told him not to dare to treat him like that. Very soon he will gain strength and be able to cope with him. But after he raised this huge amount of money, he realized that with the help of it, he could become a much more powerful person, and so he stopped saying anything. He took this gold and said that if so, he would do it and would never appear here again because it no longer mattered to him. Finally, he began to insult him, but then the guy looked at him for just a couple of seconds and he realized that he immediately needed to get out of there. His gaze was able to completely drive him away. After all, he was very much afraid that he would be able to take this money from him now and beat him. That is why they all started running away from there, because they understood that now they could suffer very much due to the fact that this guy was completely different. The old man began to thank him because he understood that this guy was able to cope with such impudent people that almost the entire city had to deal with. The guy knew that today he would leave this place. Therefore, everything would have to be done to ensure that the people in this city lived with great happiness and no one else would touch them. He understood that he had lived here for a whole year, but still the mentor did not return. Therefore, he needed to follow further. He began to blame himself because his mentor had free time and needed to be with him all the time so that this would not happen. He shouldn't worry about himself because the guy will soon be able to find him and everything will be as before. The owl continued to watch as this guy walked along the long road and was already very tired. I don't even look at the toads because this guy felt completely uncomfortable. But they didn't care at all because they are just toads. He observed all this and realized that he was not in the best situation. Therefore, he needed to do something about it. He heard some sounds deep in the mountains and wondered who was there because he understood that he was not alone here. A few seconds later, he saw how someone was able to destroy the cart, and it looked like it was one of the guards of the Great Order. He saw all this and felt that now he would also have to somehow get involved in this because he couldn't just leave them. It was hard for him to watch and then how these people fought against each other, and they really sacrificed their lives for the sake of some stupid people. Unfortunately, the ball of an ordinary person flew high up, and the warrior who was hired from that order was already ready to kill this guy. He moved towards him with only one goal: to cut his throat so that he would never show himself again. But suddenly the guy shouted for them all to stop immediately because he didn't want this all to happen in front of his eyes, which meant he understood that people should be adequate. These guards did not understand who he was and why he dared to do all this so suddenly. The guy ran straight to them to fight because he understood that now there could be very stupid deaths that had to be immediately avoided. So that everyone is aware of the events, those who were attacked by the masked people turned out to be warriors from the security order, and of course there will always be robbers who want to attack those accompanying them. But this time their number was different. Unfortunately, a large number of people were killed through no fault of their own, but simply because some people did not come to an agreement. There were many deaths that should not have happened, but unfortunately nothing could be changed. Only one warrior remained in this battle, and he understood that he would have to fight alone against all these warriors. It was very difficult mentally to realize that you are about to be on the verge of death, which is already very close to you, and you will not be able to contradict it at all. He couldn't believe that this was really his end, although he believed that he could live for a huge number of years. But suddenly at some point these masked warriors began to die one after another because that same guy was able to intervene. They saw him and realized that this was indeed a very big obstacle that they immediately needed to deal with. But they didn't shout at him not to interfere because he would still very much regret that he decided to take a different path. This doesn't bother the guy at all. He's ready to fight against an indefinite number of people. For him, it was as easy as shelling pears. He began to blow off their heads one by one so that I wouldn't understand who they were even dealing with because they had no right to do that at all. Guy Goodnight deal with them, but they didn't expect that such a strong warrior was fighting against them. He was able to calmly deal with everyone because for him these were ordinary toys that he could put in place. The guy was ready to continue this battle, but he was already able to deal with absolutely every warrior who wanted to just kill innocent people. The people he protected watched all this and did not understand how he did it because his speed was simply unreal. But suddenly someone started attacking him from behind and the blade was already very close to his neck. But the guy was able to calculate everything. To their great happiness, he was able to learn a huge lesson with the help of which he knocked out the weapon from his opponent in order to stay alive. He managed to do it better than anyone, and he was ready to continue the battle because he understood that even if they acted so cunningly, he could defeat them. He threw this blade at his opponent with the help of his leg, and it pierced him right through basically what they needed to do with such arrogant people. Everyone was very happy, but the rest of the wars understood that this was most likely their new watch. Therefore, they had to run away without looking back. The guy landed on the ground and was ready to deal with the others, but they should have realized long ago that they would not leave here alive. After all, they had caused a lot of problems. These people started asking him who he was, but the guy replied that he wanted to ask them this because he didn't like it at all that they started killing ordinary people. He began to ask them what they were doing here deep in the mountains. After all, if they were really robbers, they should continue the battle and then they would die. Everyone understood that these warriors were completely different, and this matter was no longer as simple as it turned out initially. The warriors understood that this guy was really very strong, and if they continued the battle with him, they would not get out of here alive. Therefore, they had to come up with something. The main thing is that he said that he needed to leave here and also pick up the wounded so that all this would be hushed up because he understood that they could not win. And the people were shocked that they could not. They did not think that now they would be dead because they were attacked by the robbers. Everyone began to be happy that they were alive because they understood that if he had not come they would have been dead long ago without anyone's help. And most importantly, he began to ask them what they were doing and why they did not begin to examine the wounded. After all, they began to have fun with all their might. The guy who saved them decided to approach the main one and asked who it was, and the man said that they didn't know, but they suddenly turned their way and attacked. The man who was responsible for all this began to thank him. After all, if he had not been able to defeat this and who they were, they would have been dead a long time ago and nothing would have come of it. And the man said that he was the head of the Cloud Order and he wanted to be him for what he had done and also wanted to ask who this boy was. The guy said that his name is Lee Son. He lives in a village that is located down and between the mountains. The man understood that he knew this village. I had never sat there, that in this village there was such a martial artist who could fight so well. The man put his hand on his heart and said that if he was ever in one of the cities, he should definitely come in because of this he would already have to pay him. The guy said that he would definitely come to them, but first he needed to find his mentor. He thanked them for giving him such good opportunities, and everyone didn't say goodbye to each other because it was time to move on. And the man began to wonder who his teacher was. After all, if he is really such a good master, then his teacher is even stronger, and it would be good if he accompanied them. After that, the guy began to walk around the markets to find his teacher because he thought that with the help of what the drawing would show, who would be able to find him. He approached the first passerby and asked if they had seen the man he showed in the drawing that he himself had made perfectly. And people said that they once met this man in a city called Mukshan. It was one of the greatest cities because it had one of the largest fortresses in the region, but the man did not understand why he wanted to go there. I asked for 3 days and the guy came to this city and he absolutely liked everything here because it really was as everyone said. The guy started approaching people to ask about his teacher, but everyone ignored him because they had no time for him. Even the next man was able to throw away his portrait which he was able to draw, and it already suffered a little. He was very sorry that his teacher was treated like this, but a man stood in front of him and began to question him about this face. The guy said that this is his mentor, and if they know where he is now, he would like to know. And the people said that they knew where he was and replied that he was visiting them. The guy was very happy that he would finally be able to meet his teacher, because for him this was truly an achievement. But these three guys were really difficult, and most likely they did this on purpose in order to somehow benefit from it. After that, they came to a dead end in order to deal with these young men, but they didn't quite understand any good heights he had already been able to achieve, and they would regret it. The guy started saying that he was just kind of stupid because he should have realized long ago that they didn't call him here because of his mentor. The huge big man began to run towards him in order to hit him, and he thought that with the help of this he could get a good benefit. But Lee Son was able to calmly return. And for him it was really a pleasure to laugh at her because he felt that he was much stronger than them. They became very angry with him and wanted to kill him altogether because they did not understand how he was able to dodge such a strong blow. But after a few seconds the guy was able to deal with all these villains. After all, they simply began to beg him for mercy. The guy began to look at them, and they were already completely lying on the floor due to the fact that they had been beaten because they wanted to kill him. He realized that they decided to deceive him, which he didn't like very much because most of all he didn't like people who lie. The guys understood that they had better do something. After all, if they really say that they deceived him, then he will be able to make puree from them. He began to take out another portrait so that they would really look at his mentor. After all, he thought that they could help him again. He showed them this object and said that this was the same mentor he was looking for. But these villains continued to attack him. But after a few seconds they regretted it again because the guy was faster than lightning. He was able to beat them, and they got a lot of bumps because the guy was able to put them in their place. After all, they behaved completely indecently. He said that now they should live normally and not do this again because otherwise every person could beat them. He went further on his own path and understood that now it was getting colder every day, but he could not find his mentor who needed help. Meanwhile, the Yonkian family continued to stay at home where they had great opportunities and where they could live a better life. The teacher continued to train new people in order to grow into good masters because he understood that it was his duty. In the meantime, while this old man was not with them, his son began to study with the new guys and he wanted to show off their abilities. The teacher said that during this time they had not learned to stand up for themselves at all, and he didn't like anyone here at all. After all, they didn't understand at all how to fight correctly. It can be hard for an old man to realize that he has lost such a good student, and he would like to bring him here with all his might, but his son did not understand what he was talking about. The old people didn't understand why he suddenly said this because most likely he was remembering some person who also had that name because he would be able to remember about him. Unfortunately, the old man could not remember anything at all. But his son told him to come forward and lead their family because he should not have a head that could stand up to everyone. The old man said that he couldn't do anything at all because he didn't have much time left. Now they had to unite and lead the family. However, it was hard for my son to realize that he could really lose his father in anyone because he was already quite old. The father said that before leaving she put everything she needed and would need to sort it out. In any case, whether to get it or not will be decided by heaven. Therefore, he didn't have any problems. The old man understood that these children had only greed in the first place. Will everything be calm here when he can already leave this world? Meanwhile, in the city, people continued to enjoy ordinary life. Everyone could buy whatever they wanted because it was a center where a lot of things could be purchased. The guy sat at the table and continued to eat. After all, he was already very tired and listened to what people were saying about the fact that now things were going well for the Order of the Cloudy Sky. People said that Chief Wang returned after escorting and was most likely able to complete an excellent deal. That is why they are now in full search of themselves as warriors so that they can accompany them. After all, they really had problems with this. People understood that this was just the right time to show themselves because if they could really express themselves there, then they would be considered good warriors. The youngest of them also decided to join this order in order to earn good money there and have at least some status in this community. To the most important of them, he said that he could only dream about it. In order to enter there, he must do everything perfectly, and if he makes a mistake even for a second, he will end up in another world. The guy understood that since this order is now located here, most likely he can go there and receive a small reward for what he did earlier. After all, then he told him that he could pay him absolutely everything he wanted for what he could do. Yes, he didn't need money at all because he wanted with all his might to find his old man who had already suffered very much. He came to this order and noticed that there really were a lot of people there who most likely wanted to join there. After all, this order made a good profit. The guy started to walk with them, but suddenly he was told that no matter what, the bomb was standing there. He was very busy walking because here everything can only be done through the queue. He didn't like it at all because in order to get there he had to stand in line, although he shouldn't have done that. But suddenly they started asking him if he was by any chance the guy who was wandering around in search of a mentor, because it seems he still couldn't find him. The guy said that it was him and he wanted to be able to be brought to the very head with whom he had recently met. This man began to say that he would definitely let him through immediately without any queue because he deserved much more than just some kind of honor. He finally came to this chapter and saw something. A man began to tell me that everyone had made a long journey for me to get here, and all this was not in vain. The head began to introduce himself and said that he was ready to do everything to ensure that in this order there was only justice today. They would not be recruiting newcomers within 3 days. He said that there are 3 obstacles that need to be overcome. If they know martial arts, then overcoming them will not give them any difficulty at all. No one understood what kind of exam this was, and therefore they had to hurry much faster in order to get there. The guy didn't understand at all about some kind of exam they were talking about because he thought that everything was much simpler here, but there was a selection system. After that, he began to stand and people ran forward in order to get into this system. They wanted to be one of them as soon as possible. Some guy flew into it and wanted to get there as quickly as possible, and Lee Sung turned around and didn't understand at all why everyone was going in such a hurry. He was told that it was time to move for the man whose dad was another good warrior who was worthy to join this rank. The guy got up and didn't understand at all what right this big guy had to push him. After all, he just wanted to go forward, but he was the strongest as he believed and therefore didn't answer him. This man got angry and said that because of this he was sticking out to him because he needed to see himself from the outside in order to properly assess the situation. They began to fight with each other to understand who was the boss because they had to understand that this situation hurt their feelings. Lee Son calmly put his hands in order to take the entire blow on himself because he understood that this fight would not solve anything at all. Therefore, it was necessary to do everything correctly. The two of them didn't understand why they decided to stop them and who this guy even was and where he got so much strength from that he was able to block the blow. There were 2 blows, so the guy was really much stronger than them, and in order to stop such force a good confrontation was needed. The guy told them to immediately calm down because wars are now watching them. Therefore, it was necessary to behave like a warrior. The teacher started asking them what kind of quarrels they were having during the exam and got very angry with them because they had to maintain discipline all the time. They pretended that they were real friends just to avoid any punishment because they understood that if they did not say this they would be very scolded. The guys began to persuade him to play along because I don't understand that if they have problems then they can be kicked out of the exam. The teacher said that they are not suitable for each other at all and it cannot be that they are friends. After all, they look somehow very strange. The guy understands that the problem was not that these 2 might not pass the exam, but that he too could now fly out if he played along with them. But he had to remain human. Therefore, he said that they grew up in the same area and just once they needed to be forgiven because they would never make noise again. The teacher turned away from them and understood that it was better to leave them because they were really just a little bit guilty and it was necessary to forgive them. The guy threw them head down because they set him up very much and therefore everything had to be done so that they understood and accepted the lesson. They did not understand who he was and why he made his body bend with one force and how this was even possible because he was a good warrior. The bigger one stood up and said that he really liked the fact that he had strength because it would give them good chances. After he threw them down, it was necessary to get to know each other so that they could continue on their way. The youngest of them introduced himself that his name was Chianha, but he didn't understand why. He introduced himself with a woman's name, but she replied that she was her girlfriend. The huge one said that it didn't matter to him at all whether he was a guy or a girl. Vitan made him very nervous all this time while they were together. But after that, the girl wanted to immediately attack him because he was really making him nervous. Fortunately, this stranger was able to put his hand up to block this fist because he understood that there would be some noise here again. The girl was very angry because the guy was able to calmly block this blow and she doesn't understand who he is at all. The girl began to think in her head what to do with him. After all, this guy was really completely different unlike her because the power that he had in his hands was equal to a deity. But after he was able to calm them down, they still did not stop teasing each other, and the guy and this girl continued to quarrel. Lee Sung said that the exam will start soon. Therefore, they need to offer at least something. After all, if they just want to get out of here, then they don't have to go in there. Lee Sung understands that if you leave it just like that, they will continue to mock each other, which will lead to huge problems. He decided that he could help them until the end of the exam. The first test was for them to show the learned military techniques, because then they had to demonstrate at least something to these people. The guys decided to participate in competitions where they had to show their skills in hand-to-hand combat, because there they had more chances. The girl went to the middle to own a weapon because she did a very good job with me, but there were the most people there. The big guy was able to understand that this guy already knows a lot of techniques because he is very strong. And so he wanted to ask what kind of techniques he knew. The guy replied that he knew the blow of 6 fists. That is why most likely he is so strong, but some kind of health still did not let him know anything. But suddenly he realized that he was talking about the very blow of the 6 fists, about which there were legends and also ancient myths. But suddenly he was told to calm down because they were at an exam. Therefore, it was necessary to behave adequately so that they would not be suspected. The brute couldn't believe that it really was a blow from 6 fists, but the guy replied that it was true even though it was hard to believe. He also asked if he had studied anything else. And the guy replied that he knew a sword technique called 3 fighting blades. Such techniques showed him that he really knew how to fight very well, but he was even more angry that he was so strong. And people told them to be quieter because this is not the first time this person has shouted at the entire stadium where they were qualifying. They began to apologize because they were really making a lot of noise. Therefore, they had to be quieter. The guy was even glad that he was able to lose it because he fought with a person who knows such divine techniques. But suddenly he also recalled that he had once lost to him. And he was wondering when they fought with him. His friend said that now the only important thing is that if you don't show yourself to the maximum, then you won't be taken here, because to become a warrior you need to study in several combat areas, and the blow of 6 fists and 3 combat blades are the most basic techniques. He said that alone was definitely not enough to pass the test, and this really worried him very much. He was told that only third-class warriors use the 6-fist strike as the only military equipment. The guy couldn't understand how this is possible because a direct blow is very dangerous, although this could have happened due to the fact that he did not have a strong opponent and most likely he was very self-confident. His older friend said that since they are already friends, he will try anything for him. And that's why he just needs to watch and remember. It was after this phrase that he went to show the teachers how to use the martial arts that he had been studying for several years. He approached them and thought that now he would be able to show absolutely everything and that no one could stop him. But he was too self-confident, so he was immediately bent down due to the fact that he very much believed that he could become the best fighter here. The guy said that his name is Chandipun and he knows several techniques that he wants to tell them about immediately. The teachers did not understand how he knew the technique of 30 blows in ordinary fists because this technique is widely used only in their order. The guy began to tell me that his father was a warrior of this order 20 years ago, and his last name is Chan. And his name includes Hyun and Pil. The teachers were simply shocked that he was one of the most important children of their dynasty, about whom only dry people went, no one had seen them before. Finally, they were able to find the very son of the most famous master, who was one of the best in their squad. No one understood that such a boy could achieve the same great levels of martial arts as his father, who was one of the best. The teacher said that they had a lot in common with him, and also wanted to know how much he had already been able to learn besides this technique. The guy said that he came here to prove to them that he had reached the best level that could be, and he really believed that he was a master. No one believed that he was really able to reach the advanced level. After all, they thought that he was simply deceiving them with his foot just to get into the order. Suddenly an old man came up behind them and said that his name was Mentor over there, and he was in charge of teaching the heavenly sky, and he was very lucky that he saw such a master. The teacher began to ask if the father was passing on some news because he wanted to know all this. And the guy said that he was passing on, but first he wants to know the exam. The teacher said that he didn't have to take the exam at all because he could already prove a lot. In fact, it was not a teacher but an elder about whom a lot of Sukhov went, and he was really respected everywhere. This guy was the center of attention, and no one could believe that this man was one of the most powerful masters in recent years. He clenched his fist in order to show his skill now because he was confident that he could prove to them even with basic skills. He activated the strike of 30 fists which he himself talked about because he wanted to prove to them that this was just a technique and not empty empty words. What he began to do further check, absolutely his techniques were truly amazing and also his movements were lightning fast. It seemed to everyone that he was an incredible master who truly deserved a certificate of honor for being able to achieve such heights. The thank you that was in his fist was incomparable to absolutely every student who came to get examined and get into school. The elder really liked how the guy practiced because he understood that this could really happen in the future. The guys were shocked that he was able to show such techniques because everyone thought that he was an ordinary student who was as simple as them. He felt better than anyone because he understood that most likely everyone was surprised and no one expected such an event that he would be able to show such a technique. Now his friends should have understood how magnificent he was and should always have felt that he was much higher than them and he simply did not show his strength. The teacher said that it is immediately clear who his father is because he had excellent abilities and of course he passes and there is no need to look at anything else. Also after that he delivered him a special letter saying that this was a recommendation from his father. However, he came with a friend. Somehow he was able to stretch his friend further, and now they must act together. After all, he was able to give him a chance to get into this school without an exam. But suddenly someone started screaming because something started happening there and no one understood who it was. This was the same girl who asked to be taken too. The guy started laughing at her because he was much stronger and simply didn't ask her to join them because he didn't like her at all. She really didn't like what he said to me because he couldn't do it because he thought that they were friends. The elders said that it was time for him to move so his friend should catch up with him, but he said that she would stay to watch this girl play. He hoped that this girl would also succeed and he felt that she was unusual and that she too would be useful in the team someday. Someone began to think maybe she can show her possession of a weapon. Without weapons and weapons he doesn't see anywhere at all, so he didn't know at all what the girl would do. Then they called the next person to immediately come and show his talents to enter this greatest school. The girl said that she needed them to provide her with a ball because she could not prepare her own, and therefore they provided her with what she wanted. She took one of these excellent weapons and was ready to show off her skills through her training. She immediately activated the dragon's full movement with which she thought she could calmly surprise the masters. She moved like a real warrior and nothing led her astray at all because she felt that she was one of the best. With the help of her techniques she really moved. And what she did was scary to imagine. The girl was truly a real dragon who was ready to die because she handled this weapon like a real warrior and not like a girl. It was scary because they didn't understand that this girl was really showing some strange results due to the fact that it was as if there was really a dragon walking. Our main character really liked the fact that she could do it too, and he wanted to understand whether her abilities were better than the guy who took him with her. The master said that she was passing. And he also learned that they were friends along with the same son of the great master, so she was also passing. The girl also indicated one guy who also had to go with them because she hoped that he would also be with them. The master said that she didn't need to show her anything else, and she should just pass by, and the girl began to thank him. The girl said that he should stop standing still because it was time to move forward because they had already been able to pass the most difficult exam in their lives. The girl told him to immediately go with her because he had already passed the exam, and also if he wanted to get a kick in the ass then he could stay and she would definitely punish him. He began to walk with her and understood that if he did not obey this girl she would simply turn him into a feather, so it was better to obey because she really is a demon in the flesh. It was in this way that this order was able to select 36 warriors and 60 swordsmen. And 3 new groups were created in order to distribute all the components. People started congratulating them because they were really talented and they were also able to surprise them. The guy began to say that it was all thanks to him because he was able to show Che that he was his son and found that he was no worse than his father. But the girl said that she herself was able to go through her capabilities because she was completely on the level with him and she was not interested in the fact that he thought that she was weaker. They started to get very angry and therefore they were ready to kill each other for being so angry and therefore they did not have any pressure on each other. But the guy decided to separate them. He asked, and why do they say this to each other all the time? After all, you need to live in peace and friendship and not quarrel with each other. The guy said that he came here to become a new warrior and not at all what he was talking about and what he was talking about. He said that, in fact, he came to the order in order to learn something here because he had a different goal. He said he was looking for a teacher and he needed any help that could help him find his teacher. He added that he came to the order to see if he could get some help. They began to be very surprised that he was talking about some teacher here, and suddenly the girl remembered about one master. The girl said that he wore a portrait of a teacher, and if you were a local someone everyone wouldn't understand the video, although how is this possible and why didn't she say hello to him before? The girl began to ask this guy a simple mentor, and she already knew quite a lot about the fact that he had become weak and lost. The enemy said that she was offensive, that she was kind, and she could say such things to her friend who brought her down so that she would end up in this thought school. Our main character told the hero that he heard from people that his mentor moved to another area and now he can't be found. That's what happened to this guy, and the biggest of them was finally able to understand what the whole problem was. The girl told him that he probably didn't understand something and he should figure it out as best he could. The guy began to ask what she meant because he was not talking about this situation at all because he had been looking for a mentor for a very long time. The girl said that she doesn't know at all what kind of relationship he has with one of the most famous masters, but in this world nothing is free at all. The girl said that this master takes care of the goods and escorts them in order to deliver these goods to the best corners of the world, and you must pay to buy this information. He was very upset because he believed that he did not have much money to throw around. The guy said that there is one way for this and now he needs to become a warrior to get this information, but no one understood what he was talking about. He raised his finger up to tell the latest goal of his life with the help of which he can achieve any success. He told him that he could become a warrior and that this could radically change his life. Even though he was an ordinary guy who already knew a little martial arts, he understood that when he became a warrior he would be completely attached to the order, and this would not at all be able to push him on the quest. He said that the order, this organization controls the whole world, and with its help he is making new connections thanks to which he can find his mentor. Then he realized that he had to pay for all his work and smartly if it would be for a very long time and train to show all his talents. The rest of his friends were very happy that now they could live together and he would truly become a good master who would achieve his goal. His friends said that they 100% help him in his new quest because they understand that he needs to do at least something in order to evolve as well as ensure happiness for his friends. Come the very next day and I was told that they had become elements of the order and were now among the most potential masters of the future. The assistant said that they really did a very good job and if they need something then they can safely talk about it. Everyone had already learned that this guy was not simple and no one understood what he had done that he could show up with this master. The guy said that if he is older he can treat her like a nephew. And the teacher told him that if it's more convenient for him, then there's no problem at all. The guy asked him to help him find a mentor because he knew that this was the most important goal for him because without a mentor he could not continue to exist at all. The teacher didn't understand about some mentor he said, and then remembered that he told him that he went down the mountain to find this old man. The teacher said that the order is the best place where you can study all the world's rumors, and he was very lucky that he was able to get here because he was soon able to find his mentor. The guy thanked him, and the teacher said that he can also limit them and therefore if he has any fighting skills then he can become a leader right now. And I said that he would simply become a warrior and he did not need any diplomas because his goal was to find his teacher. And this is a waste of time. The guy said that his friends are also warriors, so if he becomes a leader it will be very strange because he still needs to learn a lot. The teacher understood him, so he suggested that he meet with the chief master of their order, so that they could discuss all the most important things. The guy said that he doesn't like to be popular at all, and for him it will only be for the worse because then rumors will spread and no one will respect him. The teacher told himself that he really wanted to have a nephew like this man. Night had already fallen and everyone should understand that now it was time to rest whether or not the store of this order continued to live. And people continued to drink alcoholic beverages there because they had time for that and the right because it was time to rest. The man came to his chief master to tell him everything that happened in the order because he had to know everything. The teacher said that he met the boy and helped him when he last attacked in one of the cities. The teacher told his master that his name is Lee Son, and he is a very experienced boy despite the fact that he is very young. After that, he handed him a document that says who entered their order today because everyone should have understood what their new master was. Suddenly Mr. saw that there were 6 party laws. And this really surprised him and made him think about the future. The junior in rank said that most likely he was just trying to hide his skills in order not to stand out among his friends. The teacher said that he understood that this person would achieve the highest heights and therefore it was necessary to leave him. Nevertheless, the teacher understood that he should meet this guy and thank him for being able to save one of his beloved masters. His subordinate said that he refused and instead he invited him to find him mentors, and for this he came here. The chief said that this was a very good idea and he should help him so that he really didn't need anything. How did he start talking about the masked people who attacked them because they aroused suspicion, and it looks like something needs to be done about this too. The main thing is that this matter is still under investigation. But their identity is not easy to reveal, and they are the kind of people who will give up just because they failed once. This man said that he wants to deal with this as soon as possible because they are threatening to kill him. After that, I've been asking for 10 days, and they were really crazy because during this time the guy was already able to learn a lot at this school. The guy who came to this school trained day after day to become the best and find his teacher. After their hard work, these three friends always got along and became closer. After all, they were supposed to become best friends. But they also laughed at each other and called each other a pig and so on, and they all said this because they were not quite adults yet. The girl and this guy were arguing all the time because they simply could not be separated like a cat and a dog because they were quarreling all the time. But still there was one person who could leave them alone all the time thanks to his intelligence. He tried to make sure that these people stopped quarreling, and he also decided to go to the port. The girl told him that she asked him why he had already left because she thought they were friends. He did not understand the meaning of these phrases at all and therefore did not know that she wanted to go with him. The girl said that she was not in the best mood right now, and the guy asked why everything started so bad for her. She said that 3 days ago their squad went to one of the cities on the planet where they had to fight for their lives. But unfortunately a story happened in another city that is very much based on the future. Most likely they were the most robbers, but already with reinforcements they showed themselves real power. She also shouted to him that his situation was such a serious one and now was not the time for leisurely walks. The weather was as usual and very cool. Stained glass windows continued to flow in the mountains with the help of the wind. After that, winter came where it was already snowing and there was no time for rest at all because everyone understood that it was time to go outside and clean it up. They continued to study, and all the time I won't give a guy or a girl, but the biggest of them was called to do all sorts of dirty work. The girl was very angry. Why wasn't she hired? Because she wanted to serve as long as possible. The main thing is that he said that he has absolutely no idea. In any case, he goes only with this guy and she must sit and protect the organ. The girl was very angry because a warrior's monthly salary is calculated based on the amount spent on route in addition to the established amount. The girl was very angry that she wanted to kill him because she didn't like the fact that she was so underestimated. In the meantime, he was already able to pack his backpack in order to go on this interesting hike where they could achieve good heights. His friend began to ask what he took with him because he didn't understand why there was so much stuff with him, but he replied that he took only the most necessary things. The girl said that if life was dear to him, then he should just leave and not mock her because she wanted to stop seeing him. The guy said that she should get ready immediately because he was just joking with her and in fact she should already go out with them. The girl was angry that this idiot was able to deceive her, and now she will remember for the rest of her life. This is because she is very angry. The weather continued to show its capabilities, and it was not the best at all. They continued to move forward in order to deliver the specified cargo again. They needed to carry out the assignment that they were given. They ran with all their might to get to this place as quickly as possible because they understood that if they spent less time but had more time, they would get more money. The guy ran away on his horse as quickly as possible, and I tell the girl to immediately catch up with him, although she moved with him almost on an equal footing, but he ran away in an instant. The girl asked her friend about when they were completely finished with this because she was tired of the fact that my friend always shows how cool he is. The guy apologized because he understood that for her this competition was more important than her whole life. The girl asked him how to answer if it was his first time riding a horse. Then for him it would really not be the most pleasant trip. They continued to move forward because they understood that they still had a lot to accomplish and therefore they were completely unstoppable and they moved like a real army. But suddenly seconds later they saw several types of spears flying at them and they were very scared. After all, they were about to die. But in fact these were not spears but huge arrows that looked like a spear. And unfortunately the horses died. They noticed that they were being attacked and therefore they had to do everything to save their lives as well as the valuable goods they were carrying. Unfortunately, many people began to die due to the fact that the arrows hit them directly in the chest and they could not do anything about it. Even the most important of them was already at gunpoint and he was taking out his sword to fight. The arrow was already very close. To great happiness, he was able to get his very competent sword and pierce through this arrow so that it would fly into two parts and not hit his head. He dismounted from his horse and said that he was the head of this order, and whoever they were, they must immediately show up to fight him. Unfortunately, at first, there was no one in the bushes and no one wanted to show their true face because they didn't want to fight them because they were afraid. But then they left there because they knew that they still needed to look their fear in the face and fight one-on-one. From there came very big wars who obviously already had experience in battles and were ready to kill them. He understood that the guy could save him, and therefore he knew that he needed to immediately gain time so that they could later be saved from the end of their lives. These people are already ready to fight with them, and you don't want to take away the most important thing of their lives. They liked that it was an order of ordinary heaven, and now they will be able to get a lot of useful information from there as well as useful people. He began to be rude to him and said that there was practically nothing left of their order, but this did not interfere with keeping calm in his head. They said that they were brave guys from another village who were ready to show what real martial arts mastery is. Suddenly the old man began to think about who these robbers belonged to, and he understood that now it would be difficult for them. Unfortunately, he was mistaken, and most likely this place is under their control, and the arrival of soldiers will not solve the problem, so something had to be done. He understood that he immediately needed to gain time and began to talk his teeth into the fact that people from such trees could not come here. The main thing is that the empty bolt in it is already enough, and he must immediately give them these coins so that they will already leave. The old man understood that he needed to do something about this because his horse was very expensive for him, and so he thought about how to win the situation. But suddenly they heard that someone had been waiting for them for a long time, and most likely now they would have a very strong battle. The guy looked out from behind his girlfriend and noticed that it really wasn't the best situation there. Some bandits appeared in front of him again, with whom he immediately needed to be dealt with. After all, they did not deserve to remain alive. The bandits were very angry that they were treated without any respect at all. After all, they were much older than them and more dangerous. The guy gets off this and rushes to deal with these people with their feet. After all, they didn't scare him at all because he was a good master. He went down and began to look at some chestnuts. He didn't understand who had cut it down. After all, this tree could have lived for a very long time. The bandits got very angry and wanted to kill him immediately, so they said that she would die and took their weapons. But for them it was already too late because the guy was a very experienced warrior who was already able to be next to them. After a few seconds he was able to beat them. Basically what they deserved is what they got. The main thing is to immediately deal with this scoundrel who decided to raise his hand against the elder. Although this was wrong, the guy said that they are the ones who are wrong here, so they should ask for their forgiveness or they will lose their lives. The commander told them to deal with them because it was necessary to put an end to these bandits once and for all. The main thing was that he had already swung to kill this little guy, but he was much more experienced and was ready to do everything with the help of his strength. This man hit him on the head with his sword, but his head was so strong that it was able to break the sword in half. The man was shocked by how the boy could break the blade with his head because it was unrealistic. But it was already too late to think because the guy ran up to him and swung his fist. He hit him right in the stomach, and because of this impudent old man flew away far away along with a broken belly. The rest of the warriors began to be very indignant because the guy was able to defeat their leader, for which he will now answer very strongly. Lee Sung understood that this would not end well, so it was immediately necessary to deal with this before they entered into battle. She activated the Six Fists technique, with which she was able to immediately kill 3 people who stood in his way. This guy will truly be a monster who was able to deal with 3 people at once with just 1 blow. The battle continued, and it was not Slava very bad losses that no one needed. Therefore I needed them to end it then. The guy went into this battle himself so that there would be as much enemy as possible and to leave his subordinates in the lives. He killed each of them so that they could understand who he really was, and he deserved much more than just respect. The guy stepped on the ground and wanted to tell them that they should stop doing it wrong so as not to die. He took out his blade and said that each of them who continues to fight will definitely turn out to be a corpse like all the other opponents whom he defeated. But because of this, all the people began to run away from there because they knew that their heads were already dead. Therefore, they had to immediately run away. But the main thing is that this order was very happy that now they were able to put an end to this. But it could be worse for them in the future. The next day, the warriors of this order met with the detachment where they were supposed to end up. How very fortunate and well received as excellent friends who were supposed to come here. The chief told them to immediately take care of the horses and also the people who needed help after that skirmish. The girl was very angry. Why should she take care of the horse? After all, they already have everything themselves. Suddenly, the girl noticed that this guy had disappeared somewhere. I wanted to find out where he was because Lee Sung really disappeared somewhere. She wanted to deal with it immediately, but the guy was already right in front of her and brought 2 buckets of water to wash these horses. Some boy called Lee Seon because he wanted to see him. It was all on behalf of the head. Lee Sung understood his instructions and immediately headed to talk to him about the situation that they had recently learned about. The girl wanted to understand what connects this guy with the head, and her friend said that only God knows, but they are similar and also very close. And last time it was like that. After that, the guy moved towards this house to talk with the very person who called him there. He opened this door to go out into the room and discuss everything in a quiet environment, despite the fact that now he had to take care of the horses. A friend of Chief Wang said that he had already heard that they had to work hard because they were attacked by some people. The guy said that everything was fine and thanked him very much for his hospitality because he was glad that he was in a good home. The head's friend said that he did a great job and will get time when the task comes to an end because it was truly incredible. Also, before leaving, he said that he needed to talk to him to discuss the very moments he used during the battle. Lee Sung noticed that he had the empty eyes of a wild beast and that he was indeed some very strange man. He also understood that people with such eyes should be feared because they can be very dangerous. After such a difficult journey, they decided to rest, and the next day had already arrived, which was supposed to bring only joy to this world. The chief of one of the corps said that they needed to leave soon, so they should immediately prepare for this. The girl noticed that the guy was gone again, and yesterday he definitely went into his room, but now he's gone again. The girl reached one of the main people in this building. I wanted to ask where Lee Seon had gone, about whom she was always trying to find information. After this, the girl decided to ask the head where this guy was, and he answered if this man had run away. From such words, she became very angry and asked what was the point of him running away from here if he was very good. This old man definitely didn't like the fact that he was able to cope with these robbers, and therefore he kept trying to talk about the guy in a bad light. The girl began to be indignant because he said such bad words, but he told her not to give the word to some girl. This made her even more angry. But her friend tried to stop her because she should have realized that she was much lower in rank than this master. The teacher said that this time he could endure this hysteria, but next time she would immediately fly out of this camp. The girl asked why on earth should their friend run away, because yesterday he was able to deal so well with the villains who stood in their way. Her friend said that perhaps it was an order from the head, but suddenly something came into her head. Most likely this is really true, and it turns out that he is not such a fool. The fact that she called him a fool also divided him, but he restrained his emotions because he really was a fool. The girl patted him on the back and said that it was a compliment, so he should immediately make a simpler face since they are real friends. After that, the guy still left there to be alone with nature because he understood that nature was his best friend. He came to the very place where he was told, and he was there with incredible power with which he raised the water. He thought about whether he was in this very place that he needed to know about in order to complete the correct task. What if he was able to come to the very place where there was that very log and some people were standing next to this log? They really didn't like the fact that some stranger appeared among them, and I didn't tell him to leave him where he was. After all, they don't know who he is. He decided to play the fool in order to buy himself time and confuse his opponents. His opponents did not like this answer very much, which is what he basically wanted to do. Lee Seon-yi began to ask him who sent them here because he understands that most likely these are Chiliang people. Suddenly they could not understand how he knew this and began to irritate him even more, and then Odin said that it turns out that he had come to the very place when he met a fork in the road. He asked them if they were working. He didn't see the robber. He wanted to know if they were really the same people who immediately needed to be kicked out of this world. Such words angered them very much because they loved me when they were called robbers. And so they decided to fight him. But this didn't bother the guys at all because he understood that he could calmly deal with them. After all, they were much weaker in strength. One of them took out his blade to immediately end this on a face that believed in itself. Lee Sung was able to notice that he was already holding a weapon. Therefore, it is not time for him to start using his abilities, so that he can show them his place. The opponent had already swung to hit him on the head with a sword, and he ran next to him in order to confuse him. After a few seconds, each of them was lying headfirst in the wall or in the sand because he was able to cope with them perfectly. Unfortunately, this was what these people deserved, so there was no need to feel sorry for them. The rest of the robbers did not understand what it was and why this guy was able to deal with these people so calmly. They decided to fight with new ones against him because they needed to kill this brat immediately. Lee Seon was calm as water, and he was ready to fight even with 3 opponents at once because for him it was not any problem since he knew how to act correctly. The first of them received an excellent uppercut that he will remember for the rest of his life because the blow was really strong. Then the guy made an excellent side kick that was able to knock out another opponent who underestimated his strength. Still, thanks to martial arts, he was able to calmly cope with the losses of his rivals who attacked him. One of them understood that this was the Six Fists technique about which there were very strong rumors and no one could cope with it among ordinary people. Nobody understood why this guy is so strong and how he manages to fight so well. The guy told them to immediately stop robbing and behave like real people, otherwise they would meet him again. They stood on his knees and said that this would not happen again because they had already realized all the problems that they had done. Thanks to just his one cool thing, the world became one less thing, and this means that it was necessary to change first people and himself and then the technology. I asked for a few hours and he saw how people finally came running to him, which made him very happy because he was bored being here alone. The guy was glad that they finally got there and asked him how long he had been waiting, but he replied that no, although in fact it was different. His teacher asked if he was able to complete the assignment because he was very interested in that matter. The guy replied that everything was completely ready in perfect form. After all, they could count on him because he was only happy to help people. The teacher praised him because such work should really be assessed well, and the guy shows excellent results. Meanwhile, last night, when everyone was already going to bed, they had a very good conversation which bore fruit. The teacher told him that unfortunately he would not be able to rest and therefore he would have to go there first and deal with the robbers. He also said that simply driving them away would be enough, so it was not worth killing them. After all, they were people too. The guy accepted his instructions and was ready to carry them out since he was a very good student. The teacher understood that if they wanted from him a mission that was not theirs, then they could not be substituted and had to think through everything in advance. The teacher understood that because they decided to attack him, he was sure that most likely someone wanted to immediately put an end to their order. A few minutes later, the guy approached his friends and the girl asked what he was doing here. And the guy didn't even know what to answer. The guy said that it was nothing and it was just his usual task that he needed to complete. The teacher said that there was no time to talk anymore, so they immediately had to set off on a difficult and long journey. After his completed task, he went to sit on the horse on which he had come here in the first place because he had to ride with someone. The girl got very angry and asked what he forgot here because he had no place here at all because she was angry. He said that since they had already arrived together, they should leave together too, so she should accept him. The girl warned him for the last time and said that if she wants to live then he had better get down, but he said that he arrived at early dawn so he didn't get much sleep. She understood that since he wouldn't ask at all then it would definitely not be good. Still, after a few seconds he was able to fall asleep and the girl herself had to control both the horse and this guy. She said that he was just a fool, but still she couldn't do anything about it because the guy was carrying out the task as ordered. The detachment arrived in another city and already passed through a lot of cities, and after 3 days arrived at the very place where they needed it. The teacher said that he met with officials and will pass on information and he must meet with you to hand over the goods. And his subordinate who had been with him for many years accepted his order, although he definitely didn't like this guy. And this time, thanks to the guys from the detachment, the mission went well and he was really very happy. But after that he understood that if this happened again, then obviously the robbers would be even stronger and something would have to be done. Suddenly the ideal only thing came to his mind with the help of which he could solve all his problems, or rather draw problems right before his eyes. He noticed that there were some people from Taiha there. He didn't understand what they had done here and it really confused him, and he knew that it wouldn't be very good. Still, he came and said that it was very unexpected for him to meet such people in this place, but they did not understand at all what he was doing here. Yanko stood in front of him and it really seemed to him that he was glad to see his opponent. The teacher still understood that this was a very nasty guy with whom you definitely had to be more careful because you don't expect at all what he can do for you. For the sake of respect, he began to ask if they had successfully completed the assignment, and the teacher said that they were now loading the goods into the warehouse and everything was fine. He also smiled and said that recently the robbers had completely loosened up and they did an excellent job. The teacher said that they gave them the fare and they let them through, so there were no problems. Suddenly he realized that this person had never paid. Therefore he needed to not trust him, and he understood that most likely he was deceiving him. The teacher understood that judging by his facial expression something was clearly unclean here, and most likely this person was hiding something from him. Head Wang understood that sooner or later he would find out the plans and then everything would be clear. The teacher said that he already had a lot and he would go to hell because he should have left already. He came to the Autumn Moon's estate where there were quite a lot of different ones that needed to be seen. This man also went there because he knew that the most interesting actions of the last minutes would be there. This man entered this estate and noticed how some smart boy was sitting on a bench studying a book. This man was trying to fully gain knowledge to become one of the smartest people in the world. And that I who communicated with the head of Wang turned out to be his ward who said that their plan with the cloud order had failed. Such information greatly affected this person and he understood that most likely they would now have problems. His subordinates said that the robbers from the green forests let them through for money and because of this they really now have problems. The main thing was that he could not believe that they really violated his order, which really upset him very much. The man who was holding the book in his hands told him to block my path, but he accepted the order and went to carry it out like a dog. He continued to reflect on what happened and his charges left to cope with the task that was given to him. And suddenly this man decided to call another of his servants who had been serving him for a very long time, and his name was Amval. A masked man came to him and knelt because he was his ward. The head said immediately that he should go to the robbers and find out what happened there because he had to figure it out himself. He accepted his order and began to act like the rest of his charges because they were simply his slaves. A few seconds later, he pushed himself off the ground and was no longer there because on orders he went to carry out the task. This man understood that everything had turned out very interestingly, and most likely, he would not be bored at all. Meanwhile, in the hotel, people continued to relax after a hard day of work and hiking. They sat at the tables and continued to eat their food to fill their bellies. The teacher and his students sat and drank because they already had an excellent mission that they were able to complete without problems. The teacher said that in any case it looks like someone was attacking them from behind. Therefore you must always be very careful. The guy couldn't understand why he decided this way because he thought that there were no problems at all because everything looked pretty clean. The teacher said that it could be someone from another order and they are going to interfere with their deal so that they fail. The guy began to ask him to send this largest order, which is located in a neighboring city and which was famous for its skill. The teacher said that he noticed everything correctly, and until everything becomes known for sure one should not talk about it to others. He also told him not to go far from his companions because it is unknown when help will be needed and only he can protect them. The guy accepted his instructions because he was a very obedient warrior who always wanted only the best for his friends. The teacher said that on the way back they would like the ship and moving on land was too dangerous. Therefore something had to be decided about it. After that, they already climbed onto the ship to deliver the very things they were told about. The girl and the guy are on one of these ships to get to that place. The girl started asking him where he was looking like that because the guy was really looking very mysteriously at one point. He told her that that ship seems to be heading to one place and they have been following them since the morning. The girl said that this was very suspicious and he replied that the people on the ship wear red hats, so it is not good. What he told her was true. Believe him because red hats meant problems. There really were people in red that were completely tied on their heads and were pointing at them. He also said that on their flank there was either a dragon or some kind of snake depicted and he couldn't really see it. The girl was able to believe that these were the same red dragons about which there were legends because these are some of the best people in their business. After such information, the girl immediately ran to the head to tell him all this. She ran into his cabin without knocking and said that they were being pursued by red dragons, and this information greatly surprised the teacher. The teacher began to worry very much because the red dragons are very dangerous people with whom it is better not to mess. She said that judging by the guy's words, they were swimming after them in the morning, and that was definitely not good. The teacher decided to look out the window himself to understand whether they were telling him the truth because he could not believe that they could be pursued even at sea. They all went out onto the deck to see what the students who already understood this quite well were talking to him about. The teacher said that these were definitely their ships and that something must be done immediately in order to escape. The girl said that they immediately need to go to land because red dragons are very dangerous and it's better not to mess with them, but he replied that if they are the only ones, that's the point. The chief of management said that due to the distance it would be very difficult to catch up, so they really were not in the best situation. The teacher said that it was time for them to observe them because they couldn't make such hasty conclusions just after a few hours of observation. The girl said that they must immediately get to land because they are very much risking their lives. The teacher's friend told her to shut up because she wasn't allowed to speak at all. The teacher said that he understands her worries. But even if they go to the mainland, this will not ensure their safety. So why will they follow the words of capital? The teacher said that everyone should disperse immediately, and in case of anything they should always be ready for battle. The girl hoped that everything would be okay because she understood that it would be very bad troubles if they had clashes. The guy thought that if they really attacked them, he would be able to kill them all. However, it was necessary to understand that these were strong rivals. But suddenly, after a few seconds, they dispersed while the Jutes had bows and arrows drawn. These people were ready to attack, and they were ready to declare war on them on the water. A huge number of arrows flew at them to kill them immediately because they had no other chance to attack. The teacher said that now there is an attack from the air, so they must be careful because the arrows are already approaching. They all immediately took out their shields to fend off these attacks, but it was very difficult to keep their balance. It was very scary for absolutely everyone because these arrows were flying at everyone and they spared no one at all. The man in the purple suit said that it was time to run and therefore jumped over the side so as not to die like that from an arrow. Unfortunately, the captain jumped off and now they don't have normal discipline on the ship at all. The teacher told everyone to stand and take the sail in order to continue fighting because their ship must be afloat. The girl grabbed the cable to hold the sails because she understood that her role was very important. She grabbed this cable to immediately pull it up because she knew that there should be sails. Fortunately, they were able to raise the sails, with the help of which they had a great chance of sailing away from here as soon as possible. Unfortunately, people with red flags were able to throw special things onto their ship with which they could latch onto another ship. They immediately moved on these things to kill the people who were on the other ship. Unfortunately, they did not expect that such an attack was still possible, so they had to do everything to save themselves. In front of them stood a man who said that he was the head of the Red Dragons. If they obediently escaped, then he would save their lives. The teacher told them to beat them immediately because you had to fight to the last drop of blood if you were a soldier. That is why he stepped on the edge in order to continue the battle, because it was necessary to end this battle. Lee Son was ready to show that he was an excellent warrior, and that's why he went into battle despite the fact that it was very dangerous even for his life. He activates some kind of fighting technique that his friend did not know about, and because of this he was very surprised because sometimes he showed something much weaker. The guy was very angry because his friend used a 300 art in front of the dragon military, so it was completely disrespectful. By some miracle, he was able to calmly deal with every warrior who was in his way. It really turned out to be some kind of miracle because with the help of this he was able to cope with these robbers. His friend, he couldn't even blink his eyes because this is such an amount of time that it would be impossible to put someone down, and he couldn't do it with 3 opponents. His friend was very surprised despite the fact that he understood that his opponents would not be the best. After that, the girl also went into battle because she could not watch her friend fight and sacrifice his life. She landed on one of the ships that were nearby in order to kill these red pirates. She activated the golden dragon strike that she used in the exam because this was the technique he showed best. With the help of this cunning technique, she was able to immediately outwit 2 rivals who were very much in her way. After all, they attacked her ship. The girl was able to cope with such a difficult task and continued to fight further because she had no problem sacrificing herself. The pirate with the red bands did not like this at all, and they said that she was just a stupid girl who was not capable of anything, but they were very sorry for such words. She stepped her foot right on his head, which was a sign of disrespect and also superiority. After a few seconds, she swung her sword twice and was able to cut through her opponents who did not deserve to live. She does this very elegantly thanks to her skills and combat skills. The girl was able to cut down their sail, with the help of which they generally moved, and this definitely indicated that they would not be able to get anywhere else. The rest of the pirates shouted that it was time to run away because now this sail would completely break their ship, and because of this they would die. With the help of her power, she was able to completely destroy this ship, which seemed like some kind of miracle. Her friend watched all this and understood that she was not the weakest either. Therefore, she had to be respected. Where the guy completed his task and was already very tired because fighting every day is not the easiest task. The girl was also tired because she was able to pierce a whole mother with just 1 blow of her sword. Their friend could not believe that this was true because he could not even make a single blow in order to participate in this competition. And people began to rejoice that they were able to win because such a difficult victory really should be justified. The captain will be glad that everything is finally over, but he was still underwater and not on the ship. After such a difficult task, the detachment dealt with all the matters and returned to the order. which took them quite a long time. The most important thing is that the teacher said that they are real joys and they did a good job. The teacher said that they would no longer be able to recklessly mock them, and most importantly, he told him to tell about the young people. The teacher said that they were just treasures because what they did seemed unreal because they fought like real warriors. The most important people in this horde did not understand that when another person came it would be absolutely gorgeous, and then they would not be able to completely change the history of the order. Such words outraged the teacher a little because he himself took care of these children. And now he is telling it to some younger gentleman. The most important thing of them was that if he appears this time, he does not intend to let him go again, so he must know his place. After this, the teacher decided to leave here because he understood that this was definitely not a good conversation. The main one said that this time he would not give in to his stubbornness and hit the table with his fist. In the meantime, they did not continue to walk as usual. The weather was always wonderful in these places. The guy said that this girl is really a strong-willed girl because she was able to surprise him with her abilities back then. The girls said that compared to her, he is much stronger and he should not say such nonsense about her. Their friend was very upset because they were able to show all of themselves, but he couldn't even land a single blow, which worried him very much. After all, he seemed weaker than them. Their friend shouted that he was also strong, and therefore they had to understand that they were not the best here, and these were facts. Meanwhile, the assistant to the head asked if he should deal with these upstarts because they were already very tired of them, but the head said that he should leave it because now I won't tell them that you will only make yourself a laughingstock. This man did not like them very much, and he looked at them like a real tiger who wanted to kill them immediately. He understood that the most important of them is very grateful to these children. Therefore, they really have a defense against which they are simply powerless. But he told himself that someday they will decide what will happen to them. The weather continued to be perfect, and everyone was relaxing in good places because the sun was shining fully. Meanwhile, everything was completely different, and everyone was very angry at what was happening. The most important thing about that horde, I could not believe that they were able to miss such an important mission for which they must pay very heavily. Their leader shouted why they did this at all, and had exactly the right to fail such an important task for which they had been gathering for tens of months. The less important person asked him for forgiveness because he had an excuse about the fact that they were traveling by ship, but that person did not care at all. The most important thing of them was that he gave a lot of money. I didn't really deserve the amount he gave them. This man asked if he would go to the estate again because he understood that he had failed very badly and he would have some kind of punishment. The teacher asked whether he had taken too heavy a load on his shoulders because the mission was not yet completely completed and it was necessary to solve all this. He said that if his life is not dear to him, then he can do whatever he wants, but only he must always remember whose slave he is. This man began to ask him for forgiveness because he had absolutely no right, so the oath says, because he was still in his power. The head told him to be ready and not to hit them again as soon as the opportunity to win appeared. Meanwhile, in one house, the light was burning, which means that there were at least some living people there. Unfortunately, these people were already half of you because they were dealt with like ordinary animals that were cut into small pieces. The man who was wearing the mask asked if they wanted to die because he wanted to find out what these warriors were really ready for. These people told him that he had completely misunderstood everything and asked him for forgiveness because they understood that they were very guilty and therefore had to pay for it. This man began to ask them what they were ready to do in order to stay alive. And he wanted to know the value of their lives. These people said that they did not let them in for any price and they were simply beaten by one strange boy who had the ability to use martial arts correctly. Such information very strongly surprised the man who stood with the sword. The child reminded that some boy was able to deal with them. The man said that he looked like a very simple person, like some kind of hillbilly, and at first they didn't take him seriously, but then this man with a gun couldn't even believe who this guy was, and they say that some guy from another city also drank. Meanwhile, this guy was relaxing with wonderful weather because it was always just perfect there because it was in the south of China. The three friends continued to train at one of the special places in order to improve their master techniques. The girl couldn't understand what this guy was doing here. She had to fight only on her hands, but for some reason he took a sword. She understood that in any case something was wrong here, and she needed to immediately figure out why this guy was acting so stupid. Suddenly they noticed how the same head appeared near them about whom they had already learned a lot, and they really didn't like him very much because he behaved somehow strangely. This man looked very angry, and he always wanted to do everything to ensure that these children did not appear here anymore. The children began to greet him because it was necessary to pay respect to such a martial artist. The teacher began to ask them what general disadvantages could there be in the three-cloud blade technique. His friends told him not to say anything because otherwise he would have very big problems. But the guy thought his own way. The guy asked about what shortcomings we were talking about because he wanted to fully discuss this topic with him because it was not clear to him. The teacher continued to ask them tricky questions so that they could give the correct answer because he wanted to kick them out of here. The guy said that there were no inaccessible things at all and most likely he just heard it. The teacher said that he heard everything perfectly well, and if he decided to laugh at him, then he would pay very heavily for it. The answer was that such disrespect could not be shown. The guy said that here you just need to do it this way and took out his blade to demonstrate his technique to him. He made ingenious techniques with the help of which he was able to show a really good master class that no one would refuse. His friend didn't understand what it was all about. Why could a guy swing a sword so calmly because he usually never fought with it? The girl also couldn't believe that he fought with this weapon much better than she, although she devoted almost her entire life to this. This teacher understood that this was just an ideal technique. If she put it on just like that, then his place would be under threat to the boy. The teacher told him that there was nothing special here, turned around and told him to work much harder. His friends said that in fact he is really very good at using this weapon. I don't understand where he got such talent from. The guy said that he has absolutely no idea what they are talking about in order to hide all their capabilities. Meanwhile, in the Blue Estate, everything was as usual and everyone went to rest because night had already fallen. The same person who was the most important and once read a book thought about everything that was happening in life. The same servant whom he sent to those people came to him so that he could completely deal with them because he was his subordinate. He told him information about how the Order of the Heavenly Werewolf was able to defeat 2 entire orders. That person believed him that usually the order had already learned to fight so well because he was one of the worst orders. This person understood that the most important person in that order was much weaker, so it was most likely some new person who was able to do this. His slave said that they say that this is some new warrior who was able to break it all himself. This information surprised him very much, and he understood that if this was a new warrior, then he had a good competitor. He ordered his servant to immediately find out who he was, and then so that he could fully know how to deal with him. After that, his workers deviated and said that they would do all this immediately and ran away to find out everything. This man said that he was bored anyway, so this would be a new entertainment for him that would be useful to him. Meanwhile, in this order, people continued to fulfill their duties in order to exist correctly. After all, they had to do something. The girl was very angry with her friends because she couldn't understand why they weren't dishonoring themselves in a public place. He said that newcomers like them should not rest inside. Therefore, they needed to rest wherever possible, and so they suggested that she should come to them. The girl said that it was better for her to freeze why be there because she did not want to sit with a group of guys. She was thinking about how to go and relax herself because she understood that she could also do this for herself. But in fact, she was very competent. Therefore, she told them to go up too because there is a much better place than this. Well, they went up to go to the place where she told them it should really be better there. As soon as they got there, they were simply shocked that the girl was able to show them because they had never seen anything like this before. Nobody could believe it because this place really exists because it was very beautiful despite the fact that it was not completely closed. Lee Son said that he did not know at all that such a thing existed in this order. They did not rejoice for long because one of them was finally able to understand that this was the same inner garden where the queen lives, and now it will be very difficult for him to get out of here. After they found out all this, they were shocked because the girl really thought that this was just such a cool place where they could relax. After they went there, she realized that the maids didn't tell them at all that someone lived here, so it was somehow strange. And suddenly he said that he did that the royal daughter stays here a couple of days a year when she comes. The girl was happy because there is no one there now. I can't think of anything like this happening for her to come right now. They began to think about whether they would get something because they would go there, and the girl was no longer waiting for anyone, so she went herself. After they ran there, some person was following them, and he was somehow very suspicious that these are his enemies who need to be dealt with very competently now so that they really learn a lesson. Meanwhile, in another house where the very head who had the scar was located, something was reported to him. A man came to him and began to tell him something about those children who made him very nervous. His ward said that he saw something very interesting, so he should go with him to see it. This conversation really interested this head, and it was necessary to understand that this would be any reason to kick these children out of there. His man began to say that these 3 children who were very nervous about him could now immediately fly out because of this order. He began to approach him and whispered in his ear that they had climbed into the royal territory, and now they could pay very well for it. Also his ward said that if I can't show it in a bad light, then it can bring good results. He understood that this could really be very interesting. Therefore he had to go there immediately to somehow prove their guilt. 2 days had already passed, but the weather was still wonderful and everyone was relaxing because the sun was shining brighter than everyone else. Suddenly they showed him one very interesting dagger and he began to ask what kind of movie it was and where he even got it from. The guy said that he found this weapon on the way and it was really unusual, so he would still need it. After that they went under the fence and began to think about whether they knew who builds mountain roads because it is very hard work. The girl suggested that if mountain roads are so difficult, then most likely they are built only by local people from those trees. These roads do not go anywhere. The guy said that he thought so too, but in reality everything was completely different and he needed to know about it. He also said that most roads in steep places are built by forest thieves in order to cross from there. The girl was shocked that the city actually brings at least some use. Most likely this is not true. He said that the girl doesn't see them often and somehow that's the reason why they charge fare. He said that most likely they build them themselves and that's why you have to pay for their hard work. The girl looked at them and said that they were just fools who did not understand the truth at all. But suddenly she saw something very interesting and I really started to get confused by it because they were very close to the royal territory. She looked into the corner and noticed that most likely there was someone there. Therefore she immediately had to leave there. She stood up and couldn't understand who she saw there. After all, no one wanted to show their true identity. The guy said that he felt the presence of several people and most likely they were warriors, so they needed to run. The girl along with her friends said that if there is war here, then they need to run away immediately because if they are caught here they will have very bad results. The girl immediately began to climb the fence to get into the royal territory. After all, they had no other option. The guy looked after them and didn't understand where they were going because there were royal things on the other side and they weren't allowed to go there. Because of this they climbed over. But the guy was left alone and understood that there were people there, so they needed to do something about it. And after they landed there they were met by 3 people and so they obviously had problems and they needed to somehow deal with it. The guy understood that he was now in a very bad situation and he immediately needed to protect both himself and the girl. The girl also understood that she had to at least stand up for herself because she was already a good warrior and she could immediately get out of here with her friend. In front of them stood the very head who made them very nervous because he was waiting for any moment to drive these children out. The girl asked what he was talking about and why he decided that they were people at all because he thought that they really messed up very badly and therefore should answer for it. He said that they should accept their crime. After all, they are justified by being caught at the crime scene. And he said that they were caught jumping over the fence. Plus, it's 100% theft, so they have to accept it. The girl said that if they jumped over the fence, it does not mean that they are thieves and they just wanted to jump a little. A few seconds later, the most important person in this order approached them in order to figure out this whole situation himself because he didn't like it at all. This head understood that these children would suffer greatly now and might even leave this order altogether. After all, they were really engaged in theft. The girl realized that things were really bad for them because the ruler himself came to them and now they have very bad problems. The head said that he would check just one thing to make sure whether they stole or not because at least he would find out the truth here. He said that the item he gave to his daughter was missing, so he wants to find it. It's not visible. If he catches them stealing, he'll prove everything. Their friend asked the head whether this object was in the garden because he wanted to fully know why he was in such a hurry to find out everything. The head said that he wanted to find out everything and had already found out that they had secretly made their way here, so they would be punished in any way. The girl realized that this was somehow strange. Therefore, something needs to be done about it immediately because otherwise they will suffer very much. The girl asked the head what kind of things they were looking for because she could find it with the help of her abilities. He said that he was looking for the dagger that he gave to his daughter on her 10th birthday. After all, this dagger meant a lot to him. The girls couldn't understand how you could give your 10-year-old daughter a dagger, although he just looked like her dad. Suddenly she was able to understand that their friend Lee Son somehow took this dagger and now they really might have problems because he might be exposed. Meanwhile, he began to cut through the fence to get to that place with his friends because he understood that they needed help. As soon as he climbed over, they immediately accused him of being a thief. After all, they had at least some small clue to make them guilty. The head ordered that they be taken away immediately because he wanted to get rid of these children as quickly as possible because they made him very nervous. The girl stood in front of this guy and said that they had no proof at all, so they must first show why they wanted to take him away because it was completely unfair. The head began to ask if this guy happened to have a dagger because he understood that most likely he would be able to get to the bottom of it now. The girl told him to immediately remain silent. After all, if he even says his own thing, he will already be guilty, and it will be difficult to turn away. He took out a dagger and asked if they were interested in this dagger because he said that he found it on the road. He told him to immediately give this dagger back quickly because it was not his dagger. The girl told him not to give up the dagger, but it was too late, and so he extended his hand to give up the blade. The girl began to get very angry because she realized that usually he is not like this at all, but for some reason now he is so calmly giving himself a death sentence. He took the dagger from him and said that they finally could not find the thief who decided to take this dagger for himself. The guy didn't understand what was happening and why they were starting to make him feel guilty because he wasn't to blame at all, he just found him on the road. The head said that he stole it, so he must immediately bring punishment for such lawlessness. After that, he said that most likely the three of them stole this dagger, so they should all be punished together. His friend understood that if things went like this, they would really have a problem, they might even be kicked out of this order. The girl also understood that they needed to come up with something in order to stay here because otherwise they would be very severely punished. Lee Son did not understand why he was made guilty because he simply found this dagger when he climbed over the fence. The older students started laughing at them and said that they were just ordinary thieves, they were much younger than them and had no right to do that at all. They wanted to do everything to get these people kicked out of here. After all, they greatly interfered with their leader. The guy understood that he was not a thief at all and had to prove it immediately so that they would leave him in this order and not start scolding him for anything. He became even more angry and said that he was not a thief, so they should all immediately stop their suspicions. Suddenly someone immediately told them to wait, and the head's assistants were very surprised and did not understand besides this had come out to them. As soon as they were able to look back, they saw that in front of them was the same girl everyone was talking about. This was the same daughter of the great man about whom it was generally impossible to even speak out loud. After all, she was very beautiful. The most important member of this order was very happy that finally his beauty came to him. Everyone was shocked that the lady came to them and hoped that she would pay attention to them, but the lady was too busy. The head thought that now these guys would definitely not be able to get out of it due to the fact that the most important people were here who would now decide everything themselves. He said that these people entered the lady's garden and stole her dagger, which she treasures very much. The girl took her dagger in order to return it to her place because she really loved this jacket that she was given at the age of 10. She began to think very hard about what to do with these people. After all, they stole her dagger, so that it was completely wrong. The girl began to scream that they climbed into the mistress's garden to rest a little. They didn't steal the dagger at all. Another person began to confirm it, or that they did not steal anything at all and simply found this dagger because it was lying around. The head was very angry that they even discovered their family. After all, they had no right to do this at all because they started lying in such a place. The lady told the head to immediately calm down because she is much more important than him, and he must understand that she does not want to listen to all this. The girl said that it was not a crime at all if they wanted to relax in the garden, so they should be punished but not too much. The head understood that now this would really be a problem because most likely this girl would now be for them and she would save their lives. She also said that if they wanted to steal something, they would steal something valuable than some kind of dagger, so he should calm down. The assistant to the head said that it does not matter what they stole, but the very fact that they were thieves, and therefore they must immediately be punished for this in order to learn a lesson. The girl said that this is very true, but you still need to understand that the punishment should not be very strong since they did not do it on purpose. The head pointed his finger at these three so that she could understand who should now bring punishment for the very bad deeds they had committed. The girl began to ask if there was some person who saw that one of them was walking with a dagger and said that it was his. Other assistants said that this did not happen, but still therefore they must be punished immediately, but the girl thought very logically. The girl said that the person who supposedly had the dagger said that he found it on the road. Therefore we need to do everything to make it true, but the head said that it was a lie. The girl began to ask if they were telling the truth because it was possible that someone specially came for this dagger, stole it, and threw it to this guy to frame him. After such words, her opponent understood that he was completely powerless. Therefore, he needed to immediately come up with something to win. The girl also said that she heard a lot while she was driving here, and 3 young men showed themselves perfectly and saved many lives. She tried to protect them with all her might so that such glorious people would continue to exist in their order. The girl said that for her the life of the people is much more important than some kind of dagger, and her father understood that this girl had already become very literate. The girl came up to him and said that she had caused him problems, so he should take this dagger as a gift because it was very rude for her to leave it like that. After they met face to face, he seemed to float and thought that this lady was just some kind of angel because she looked very beautiful to him. His friends were also happy because she was able to save their lives and acted like a real lady. Therefore, she had to be remembered. The rest of the guys who wanted to set them up understood that now they were in very bad circumstances and they needed to do everything to stay in the order. After all, they were telling lies. Lee Sung bent down in front of this girl and began to say that he was very glad that she came because she could save his life. Headval was very upset that his plan did not work out, and therefore he will think about how to carry it out next time. The most important person in this horde was not very happy that they were able to resolve this misunderstanding peacefully, and now everyone has their own responsibilities so they can leave. After such a difficult situation, all the people went about their business to enjoy life in this good place. Headval was very upset that his plan had failed, and so he turned and left from there like a beaten tiger, and the girl noticed it all. She understood that I would have been a little more and they deceived her. But during the interrogation she understood that this guy was not lying, and so she trusted her heart. The head was thinking about how he could now defeat this guy again because he wanted to take everything so that he would fly out of this order. His assistant also felt very angry that he could not learn a bonus for this. Although if everything had been successful, he would definitely have received something. The girl noticed that these people there were grinning, so 100% there was some kind of conspiracy here, and you can't believe gossip. She decided that now she must always watch them and keep an eye on them because these people are clearly not simple. And her father was very happy that she came and was able to solve all this thanks to the fact that she had a good upbringing. My father was very happy because I could still solve everything with her heart thanks to her cool brain. The girl was glad that she had seen her father for such a long time, otherwise she would have to ask him how he was doing. They continued to communicate, and I asked for enough time while they sat at the table and discussed it all in one excellent house. In the meantime, in order to finish my working day, the training was hard. Lee Sung also chose to do this because today there was also a bad misunderstanding which they were fortunately able to resolve thanks to the good lady. His friends said that while they were gone he must follow all the rules and not do anything wrong, and they also asked him not to go looking for a teacher. He waved his hand at them and said that he would do everything as they wanted because he respected and appreciated them very much. After that, the twins left here and he was left completely alone due to the fact that it was already time for them. Unfortunately, he was left completely alone, and now he will be very sad because he will not have company. He decided to go to the very place where he was, so he no longer thought anything and simply acted. After all this, the guy went to the very garden where he wanted to rest because he was already allowed to be there since the mistress had arrived. The guy sat all the time and thought where his teacher was because he wanted to spend his whole life searching for him with all his might. It was very difficult for him to realize that he would most likely never see his teacher, whom he loved very much. Suddenly, he was able to notice someone walking towards him, but he did not leave there because he was very bored being alone. The lady came to him and asked what he was doing here alone and where were his other friends with whom he talked all the time. The guy said that they left on a mission and he was left all alone, and now he will be very sad. The girl understood the whole situation and felt that she needed to become his assistant, or rather his girlfriend. The girl was thinking very well in her head and understood that he already knew that she was coming, although she approached on purpose unnoticed. The girl was also able to notice that he did not look like a big warrior at all and that he had a very kind heart. The girl also understood that if it weren't for him, they would not have been able to stop the robbers, and he is really a very good person who already knows the fate of the people. She really hoped that these words would turn out to be true because now there are not enough first-class warriors at all. She sat down next to him and asked what he was doing here. And he replied that he really liked it here because she had an excellent yard. She said that it was just wonderful and he could come here whenever he wanted because she was a very kind lady. Lee Sung was very happy that the lady gave him such a cool thing as coming here to this luxurious courtyard. She also understood that people say about him that he is just a naive fool. but in fact he only seems naive, but in fact he is much smarter. It was noticeable from her facial expression that she really already liked him and was very interested in his mystery. The girl was very worried about what they were saying about the crisis, but most likely now everything is not as bad as she thought. It was already very dark, and the sun was almost far away, but the moon was shining farthest. Meanwhile, we are wondering what this guy is all about because he is completely unusual. She understood that she was carrying very little money, and she was thinking about how she could change all this because she wanted more resources. She felt that supporting the order was not at all easy, and she needed to find some way to raise the finances of this order. She understood that there was no hope that these same people would not get in their way. Therefore, it was always necessary to have a safety net. Will these three people be able to change everything in this place, because she was interested in whether this was even possible. Morning had already come, and they were on the market street where you could buy yourself anything you wanted but for good money. These three went there and chose for themselves everything they wanted because they had already completed enough of the mission and therefore received good bonuses. The girl understood that lately there had been a strange atmosphere in the order, and they had a completely different understanding from each other. A great friend said that it was all because of the princess, and it seems that everything is easy for me due to the fact that she was left to deal with matters herself without returning to her family. The guy asked why they were so easy because he didn't know anything about this princess. The girl said that she just does everything 100%, that's why it won't be easy because she was very punctual. She also said that people don't think so and they prefer to do what is more convenient for him despite the fact that the lady does everything fairly and correctly. Lee Sohn suddenly stopped this girl, but she didn't understand at all what he wanted to ask her about, and she was somehow strange. He said that there was something strange there, and she looked around with him, although she understood that if her friend said this, then she needed to act immediately. They noticed how three warriors stood in front of them who were dressed in blue clothes with good weapons, which means that they were a neighboring order. Unfortunately, it turned out to be true. These were the same people from the neighboring order about which the princess had spoken that day was very dangerous. They began to laugh at them and called them heroes of the Cloud Order, although they said this with mockery. One of them said that he was just a simpleton and pointed his finger at him. Although this was not at all civilized and indecent. Lee Sohn did not understand what was happening and why it was completely indecent to point a finger at him and behave in a completely indecent manner, although he was respectful to them. The bald man was very angry and did not understand why he was treating him this way, although the guy was very respectful to him. He also asked why he was behaving this way because it was completely indecent and he had to calm down. After all, they were talking to him on an equal basis. His friends said that these people from the Cloud Order did not understand at all who they were dealing with and did not know any manners of how to talk to elders. The girl was very angry that they pointed it out to them like that because she understood that it didn't matter what age he was. Her friend completely agreed with her and understood that they were not obliged to do anything to them at all, even if they were several years older than them. I started asking him if it was true that he was able to defeat a whole crowd, and the guy answered that it was so. His friend started laughing and said that he was probably lucky to look so ridiculous because he didn't know what he was capable of. The girl got even more angry and said that they were in trouble because if they didn't apologize now, then it would be completely bad for them. And he saw that same girl and said that a lot of people had already talked about her, but he didn't believe at all that she was so impudent. He also said that she looked very much like a boy and did not at all correspond to a girl. But it was already too late. After all, she was next to him and gave him a blow with her fist. The blow was so strong that this man's drool flew out along with his teeth because she was able to seal his bald head. What his friends saw shocked them, so they immediately began to attack. Lee Sung was ready. That's what I wanted. I had my back turned, but he was already able to calculate everything, and so now they will pay for it all. Lee Sung was ready to sacrifice even himself in order to cope with all these people. After all, they began to irritate him very much because of his girlfriend. Their biggest friend became even more angry. After all, they had no right to do this to his best friend. After a few seconds, they were able to cope with these two insolent people who had no right to attack and insult them. The kick was so powerful that he was able to knock it out along with the blood, and this man would never speak again. Another was able to blow his head off. So he started bleeding very badly, and he didn't know at all how to defend himself. He said that they have absolutely no right to mock his friends, so anyone who does this will deal with him personally. Lee Sung stopped him and told him to be much calmer because if anything could happen he would die. His friend didn't understand where he got such power from and how he could stop him because he tried his best. Fortunately, the girl and her friends were able to knock down these three people who attacked them for no reason and started calling them names. The girl asked if her friend was able to fight at least a little because when they were on the water then he could not show anything. He began to brag and said that now they could see absolutely all his talents. The girl told her friend to listen carefully, and if he did not finish the fight completely, he could be stabbed in the back with a knife. Lee Sung did not understand why this world is so cruel and what to do about it. After all, he wanted to resolve everything peacefully. The girl also said that if they had no strength at all then they would have been killed immediately and they would have had no choice. The guy understood that the bandits killed those who were completely without weapons and without strength, so in this world you really need to be wary of such people or punish them. The girl also said that if you end up with something that you should finish it correctly, and she stood and looked over these people. After that she stepped on one person's painful point that his entire body rose completely because of her strength. He began to scream very loudly due to the fact that the blow was delivered to the point. The next day, everything was just as calm and stable in this cloud order because everyone had a great life. The head together with his most important boss sat in the same room and discussed some of their very important matters. After all, they were the most responsible for the management of the order. The most important one said that he now became aware of a problem that happened quite recently, and that the legendary 3 beat some important people from another team. The head said that 3 had broken bones and the person would no longer be able to use his leg, so it was very hard to say. This situation really made them think a lot, and they didn't know at all how to deal with this now, but at first he said that to do this you first need to figure out what happened. A few seconds later I told him that one very respected person came to him from another village who had beaten people because he was still slowly figuring out what happened. People began to worry very much because they understood that now they would have very bad times due to the fact that the 2 main orders did not share something between themselves. The chapter turned around to understand for myself what was happening here. I felt that now they would have very bad times with these children. Standing in front of them were the very people with whom they needed to talk because they understood that now this clan of the order usually had to pay for everything that its people had done. They immediately said that they must know what they expect from them here and therefore immediately wanted to force them to apologize and also give compensation. I understood that he would have to pay for this, and he felt that he now had another problem. This man said that he should immediately yes to these people and then they will do everything with them themselves. The leader said that after talking with these people they were able to find out that their people started first, and he was always sure that his children would never attack. His rivals asked whether it was okay for them to go that far. After all, they really broke some people's lives. The head understood that most likely it would not be possible to sort things out in a normal way, and that is why they are now really in serious trouble. And the people said that out of pity they were taking care of them all this time and they were giving them such troubles on their nerves, and therefore they immediately had to die for their own. The head became very angry after hearing such words, and said that they must change immediately because what they told him hurt him very much. But these people were not at all cultured and said that they didn't care because their part now completely depends on what they give them. After a few seconds they noticed how someone began to move towards them, and this means that now they will really have problems. The lady, together with her friends, whom she had recently been able to have moved in the direction where they were talking about all this. They were very upset. People understood that this girl would now disturb them very much, and she did not want to go back to her family at all. The girl said that it was completely indecent to mock the princess in broad daylight, so they should change immediately. They said that this was not at all true and understood that now they would have problems due to the fact that they did not notice the princess at all. She ordered them to leave immediately, and if they continue in the same spirit she will report this to the alliance, and then they will be able to find out who is really to blame. Unfortunately, I don't understand what's against this lady's words, and they can't hand over anything at all, so they had to leave here. They said that since the lady intervened this time they would tolerate it because they had nothing else to do but bow. She asked what would happen if their patience ran out because she understood that she would not always be able to be here and these people would need her help. Their head said that something similar would happen to me again, then their order would not stand aside and would decide everything itself. He said that it was time for them to return and therefore turned around and said nothing in response to this girl. She understood that if they declared war on them then she would have to do it too, although she did not at all want to die along with ordinary people. Lee Son understood that this was completely unfair and those people should pay for everything they did to them. After all, they disturbed the lady herself. Meanwhile, in the very place from which these people came, everything began to seethe because they didn't like the result in the chapter. There you could hear someone swearing very loudly and understood that they had completely failed to fulfill their mission because of some lousy girl. This man hit his desk with his fist and felt that he had been unable to do anything at all with this order since this boy appeared there. He shouted that all his workers were just corpses who did not deserve him to work with them. He said that they immediately need to kill these two because they are standing in their way. After all, if they don't do this, then they will regret it. His man asked whether it was worth sending this order to the murderers because he did not know exactly how to convince these people. This man said that he could rely on them and smiled very strangely because he understood that now he had the lives of these people in his hands. The man who served him said that at the same time he wanted to kill another guy whose name was Lee Son. And this man who was the head realized that this was the same stupid person who was looking for his teacher. His servant said that this was completely true, and he described everything briefly and clearly about this man. The head said that if he wants to deal with all three, then you will need more money because now he has an increased task for one more person. His worker said that he would not demand more money from him and would do it all only because he would give him the rest. And his head told him to do everything as he thinks because he relies on him very much because he believes that he can bring him victory. The servants understood everything and knew that if he didn't cope with this job, then he would be very sorry. Therefore, he needed to do everything in the best possible way. 7 days had already passed since then, but the weather was still ideal, and in this city it was not people who continued to sort out their affairs. Some very important meeting took place at which there were 4 respected people with whom they were now supposed to discuss everything. The head of the Cloud Order together with his daughter could not believe that the gentleman himself would come to them because he thought that everything would be decided through the ambassadors. The gentleman said that it was very difficult for him to realize that he did not come often, and therefore he said that this would not happen again. The head of this order noticed that there was a person next to him who embarrassed him very much, and he understood that this would become a hindrance for him. After he looked at him strangely, this man who came to visit him realized that he needed to introduce another friend of his. He said that this man was Sol Inchu, who had come from very distant villages to be with him. The princess's father did not understand what he was doing here because he thought that this man would no longer come to these lands because they were far from him. Still, this man stood in front of him and lowered his head to express his respect because he knew that he was much weaker than Random. The father of the princess also presented himself and showed his magnificent daughter, who looked simply divine. The girl began to confuse everyone with her smile and said that she did not think at all that today she would be able to meet with one of the 5 daggers of the best estate of the mountains. This man said that he did not think at all that the princess would know about his past and present. The princess did not understand why he appeared here and what happened that he had to travel such a long way. The princess asked whether it was worth sending several people to the alliance, and the same gentleman who arrived said that 5 more people were needed and this newcomer whom he brought with him would go with them. At first glance, this man resembled some very dangerous character. Therefore, it was necessary to always be on guard with him. The girl understood that something was clearly wrong here, but she did not show it at all in order to preserve her innocence. So they had already gathered near the back gate in order to leave them and proceed to the alliance because this was their mission that they had to overcome. But near this gate was the same Lee Son who was simply enjoying life and wanted to find out what was going on here. Everyone noticed that this guy started to walk away from the back gate somewhere, but he said that he went for a walk and would be back soon. He began to follow good paths in order to enjoy his life, which was already passing very quickly. He went to a good river to see its beauty because he knew that nature is the most valuable thing they have in life. He really liked to enjoy these beautiful views because he saw how the sun's rays fell on the ground and made simply divine patterns. The guy kept thinking about his mentor and trying to understand what he was doing now and why he was not with him now because he loved his mentor very much. The guy also understood that for some reason he had been sleeping very poorly lately and therefore something had to be done about it. Suddenly he noticed that someone was passing behind him and he felt that now he was not safe. He didn't show that he noticed someone, but he tried to figure out who was walking there because he was very scared. Well, then he was already in that place and didn't understand who it was that was moving towards him, and he was thinking about how to get rid of them. Still, it's because most likely these are the people the teacher was talking about, namely thugs who kill people for money, and most likely he now has problems. The guy also understood that he had been told that these people were hiding in an ambush and killing completely unnoticed, so he had to be on alert. He began to worry very much because he understood that most likely it was really them and now he could pay for it with his life. These people were ready to do everything to kill this guy because he stood in their way and their leader ordered this to be done. Suddenly he was finally able to understand that most likely these people came here to kill him, and then he immediately needed to catch something in order to stay alive. One of these fighters began to realize that most likely the guy was able to notice them and now they will also have problems. One of them raised his hand to give an order with his help. He wanted to no longer have to deal with this guy. He waved his hand, which showed that he must now immediately carry out the order that his head gave him. He ordered that he must be captured immediately, and even in the best case they can save his life so that he can tell everything in full later. These three monsters began to jump at him with weapons to kill him, but he stood very cold-blooded because he understood what he would do with them now. He was ready to kill them, and these people were already standing in front of him because they were not the only ones who needed to take him away alive or dead. The guy said that he didn't want to kill them at all, so they should leave here immediately because their lives could be useful to many more. These people thought that they could calmly kill him and began to laugh at him because there were three of them and he was alone. These people ran to kill him because they thought that everything would be so simple. In fact, this guy has already read everything, so people will really regret it now. He was able to return from the first blow, which was aimed squarely at his head, but with the help of some incredible dexterity he removed his head. After that he was able to take his hand, and with the help of his strength he completely controlled his weapon. After all this he dealt another blow directly to the head, so that his opponent would understand who she was going with me because he was no longer a child at all and now he would kill and take lives. Behind him was another rival who wanted to end everything immediately and took out his weapon to carry his back, but the guy saw everything. Thanks to the fact that he trained for a very long time and diligently, he was able to anticipate this blow, and with the help of his power of thought as well as his trick of tricks, he was able to knock out this weapon as well. These people were very scared. After all, the opponent was so strong that he could do all this. After that, he made several blows in order to finally take their lives away because they really only deserved this one. The guy was able to drink 3 warriors at once and began to move somewhere further. He shouted for them to attack him immediately because it was time for him to leave and they were taking up his time. Such words greatly offended one of the warriors, and he wanted to do everything to ensure that this guy never appeared before his eyes again in his life. One of the ninjas couldn't believe how such a boy was able to deal with 3 of the most experienced warriors at once, and in fact he is not at all the simpleton they say about him. After this weak decided to take his own shuriken, with which he would like to throw it at his head and take his life in this way. He released this weapon and thought that if he was the first one everything would work out, but he was very mistaken because this guy was much more experienced. He was able to calmly dodge this blow and his hand was very close to the shuriken, but he was not afraid at all. Still, he was able to show everyone his skill. With the help of this, you added another part of his body, and thanks to this they now began to fear him. He somehow managed to break this man's arm, and he began to fear him even more due to the fact that the power he used seemed unreal. After that, he delivered another blow to the head, with which he was able to knock out all the teeth of this man and also throw him up. The rest of the people did not stand aside and also received incredible blows from him, which he executed as if he was simply playing with them. The guy said that they should consider that they were just lucky and they were weak, so this time he would be so cruel to them and would not take their lives. After such words, they began to feel even stronger because he called them weak, and this made them worry. These people were thinking about who would immediately kill this guy who was much stronger and more experienced than they could have ever imagined. The guy turned around and said that he had to go now, but he very much underestimated those people who did not at all appreciate what they were given. That is why one of them fired his knife right into his back so that the guy would immediately commit suicide. Fortunately, he was able to predict all this and understood that they would attack him when his back was turned to him. Unfortunately, this is what happened, but he was able to return because there was a warrior underneath him, and they were able to cut off only one part of his hair. This piece of hair fell to the ground, and he became very angry because he did not like the fact that now he had no hair. He looked back and saw that these people continued to do very bad things in order to stay alive and complete their mission. It was yours who couldn't believe that he missed for the first time in his life. After all, this had never happened before, and he was right on target because he had been training for a long time. Lee Sung was very angry because these people cut off his hair. Because of this, he will not communicate with them so easily and will want to take their lives. That's why he immediately decided to do something about it, but it was yours who had already jumped out of there because he understood that he had now been noticed. But the guy was not at all interested in this, and he was able to completely predict his movement and therefore threw a stone directly at this warrior. The stone hits you very quickly, and it was even hard to imagine what would happen next to this man because it could hit him right in the neck. As soon as yours began to notice, you would already be too late because the guy was able to win the perfect time. Such a blow could definitely hit this man right in the head, for which he will pay very heavily because such a force can completely kill him. After such a powerful blow, this man fell to the ground due to the fact that the stone hit him in a very sore spot with the help of what the guy was throwing. The guy said that he would never kill people, but if he were a mountain beast he would crawl on his lap all the time. After he found out about all this, he began to worry very much about the fact that now he had no hair and would look very strange. This warrior was lying on the floor and was already dying due to the fact that the guy was able to do everything to ensure that this man would no longer survive. This man is already completely finished in his life due to the fact that his stone landed really well. With great happiness, meanwhile, in the motherland of the cloudy sky, everything was calm because there was peace there. Finally, this guy returned, and the girl did not understand at all where he had returned. The girl said that a man from the alliance itself had come to them, so he must be here immediately, otherwise he could suffer very badly. After he found out that there was a person from the alliance here, he realized that this was a huge chance to see his mentor. The girl said that it looks like he came on an errand to send some things from the main headquarters, and most likely this is a new task for them that will be well paid. The girl asked if he wanted to go with them because she was also thinking about how to get new money and also spend time with pleasure. He didn't even know whether he should go with her or not because new news could come from the teacher, and if he doesn't recognize them, then there will be very big problems with the search. He said that if he finds him, he will come here, and therefore it is better not to worry because his teacher can always be found. The girl started hitting him on the shoulder and asked why he was so nervous because he immediately needed to go with them. The guy was really very interested. He couldn't believe that he would also go there because places could be limited. Meanwhile, in the field something was always wrong, and one of these warriors fortunately turned out to be alive. After an accurate blow to the head, he was still able to wake up because the guy left him while he was alive because he didn't want to kill anyone. This man couldn't understand why he studied like that and what happened in general. I didn't feel at my best. After that, he noticed a huge stone and realized that most likely they threw this stone at him, and because of this he slept in the field for a very long time. He couldn't believe that he actually had some kind of bump and was hit with a stone because he thought that he was invincible. After that, he began to look at the distance here and realized that this was simply impossible and could not believe that it was true. After she began to walk, he felt that it was completely unpleasant for him to do this. That's why he stood up on his own 2 feet and said that it was much better to report this and come back because right now he was in no condition to fight against this guy. This man understood that if this guy was really the one they were hunting, then they were simply too tough for him. Meanwhile, the customer felt no better than anyone else due to the fact that his wars could not fulfill such a simple order that he announced to them. This man continued to sit in his house and thought about what he should do. After all, he understood that they were now in very poor condition and he had lost people. He began to ask his experienced assistants, who should have immediately told him what happened and who would now go on new deliveries again. His assistants said that he noticed everything correctly. Now they will have new tasks that they should change. The old man said that most likely this could cause him a lot of problems, so they should end it immediately. His assistant said that there would be about 7 people, and this was completely unusual for him because he learned that this was too small a number for his mission. After that, he asked his second assistant to find out what they should do now. After all, he understood that for them this was really a small task. The assistant said that the arrow had already been released by their hand. However, one thing does not give him peace. The old man began to ask his second assistant what he was thinking about all the time and why he was so strange. His second assistant began to talk about the person who would accompany them because he was a very experienced alliance master. After the old man, he was therefore very surprised because he did not think that such an experienced person would accompany them. But after that, his assistant told him not to worry at all because he could handle it on his own without any problems. He understood that their main enemy was the Order of the Clouds, but not the Alliance at all, so they needed to come up with something. The old man said that this was of course true and they should take care of them, but first they had to nail them down. Unfortunately, in any case, you will have to report this to the master because he should have known about all this himself. Meanwhile, on that very estate where are the young gentlemen, everything was stable and his life was simply in luxury. This man continued to write his books and he liked such a cool environment, and behind him was that same warrior. The young master told him to check what kind of items were ordered to be transferred to the Alliance through ordinary water because he should have known about everything. His warrior accepted all these orders because he had no other choice because he is his ward who must carry out absolutely every order. The young master wanted to find out if the very people about whom legends had begun to circulate were coming because he wanted to immediately put an end to them. The young master said that this man would repent of everything, and he thought to himself that it was better to contact the spring when they were still weak. Meanwhile, people were already making preparations to transport things because I don't understand that they needed delivery throughout the city. They tested their horses for strength because a horse is the best and most convenient form of transport. Unfortunately, the road was going to be very difficult for her, and so they did everything very carefully to ensure that the preparation was completely perfect. Meanwhile, in the main gentleman's room, he continued to communicate with his daughter in order to fully understand what life was waiting for. The father did not understand why his daughter decided to go with him, but she said that she wanted to visit her mentor along the way. The father was very worried because his daughter could have been hurt on this road, and therefore it was better for her not to go. The girl told him not to worry because his daughter is much stronger than he only imagines because he doesn't know much about her. But still, after such words, he agreed with her and left this whole matter at her discretion because she herself must decide what to do. She herself understood that this was not the most important reason that she announced to him, and that she would tell him the most important one later. I asked for a few days, and they were already able to get ready and go on this trip to bring all the valuable cargo to the place where they were indicated. They walked for a very long time on their horses in order to bring all this cargo, which was not at all easy as it seemed at first. They had an excellent fact in which it was indicated that the lady was traveling here, and it was with the help of it that it was clear that it was necessary to protect it. The girl rode with a great look, and she had everything completely perfect since she was a mistress. This guy's friends started asking him about the place where they were going. I didn't know that his homeland was there, and that he was the best in that area. The guy didn't answer him at all, and then he was asked a question about whether he missed the teacher, and Lee Son replied that he really missed his mentor who always gave him the true path. His friend began to ask about his mentor in general because he wanted to understand what kind of person he was and what his full name was. Lee Sung understood that what he would tell them would be nonsense for them. But he had no other choice and said that he simply called himself Sin Sung. After they heard this, they began to worry very much since this person was not the last in the alliance. The girl also thought about who he really was and understood that there was clearly something fishy here. Therefore, she had to always be on guard. This is the information they really thought about who exactly could be the mentor. After all, they really couldn't tell about him. A few seconds later, these people were called because they had a very important task that they immediately had to cope with because the urgency was at the highest level. They were told to immediately watch their step because they were very much disliked since many were under the leadership of that same head. These friends understood that these were simply the same wards of the head of the Vols, so they did not pay attention to this at all and understood that they deserved much more than to hang around near these people. Please, the roads had already been on the roads for quite some time. It was very difficult all the time, and they had to walk for a very long time since there was no normal transport at that time. What if Lee Son was able to notice something very interesting, which then gave him very important information with which he would give the future? He was able to notice that people were hiding in that direction, so they immediately had to do everything to keep the lady safe. His friend was very surprised and couldn't believe what he was saying because he didn't see anyone, but still he trusted his friend. That's why he went forward to sort it all out, because he couldn't just leave it like that. This guy approached the main thing and said that there were people hiding ahead, so something immediately had to be done to avoid being ambushed. The head of Vol didn't even understand what this meant because he wanted to fully understand everything about what they didn't mean at all. The guy said that his friend Lee Sung gave him information that there were people hiding ahead, so he slowly needed to do something about it. Since this man didn't like Lee Sung very much, he didn't believe him at all at first in order to make it worse for him. After such information, he became very angry and said that if they want to see his anger, then they will be very sorry. After the guy realized that he wouldn't believe him now, he simply left and said that the head knew better. This information made the head very angry, and he understood that these guys were much smarter than they seemed to him. After they walked very little time past the road was always difficult, so the time lasted a long time for them. Friends began to discuss this situation among themselves and realized that they now had a lot of problems because this person did not believe it. Lee Sung understood that he was right, so he immediately had to do everything that he considered necessary in order for the crew to become alive. They entered a very bad place where they could be easily attacked, so he assumed that they could be attacked now. People were really watching them, and that's why they had very bad problems that were about to start. They passed a very difficult road where the horses began to behave very strangely due to the fact that they felt in a narrow space. After a few seconds, this man was able to notice that something strange was happening here and realized that these guys were right. Unfortunately, many different stones began to fall on them, which could immediately finish them off in life. Headval told them to stand immediately because they were enemies, and unfortunately those guys were right, so they didn't need to change anything. What he heard from that guy made him think, because these words were really true and he didn't believe him. The people who stood on the mountain did not introduce themselves at first, but the man who had a long beard said that they were the Cloud Order. He also said that they would pay money. Therefore, they should immediately give them the way if it is really very important to them. But these people didn't care at all since they already had weapons with which they wanted to kill on orders. The number of archers was really large, and now they were waiting for only one outcome that could change everything. They directed their hands forward to finish off these people because this was the order with which they were powerless. They fired arrows forward in order to prevent them from traveling further. After all, this was exactly their mission. The main reason is that everyone would immediately overheat because such a powerful attack could kill them, and therefore they could lose a lot of warriors. People didn't know what to do because they had a huge number of arrows on them, and they were very worried because they could die. As an equal regret, the same sadness began to greatly lose its value due to the fact that arrows hit them. It was very difficult for your ladies to react to such an attack since they were in large sizes and were hit by arrows. They tried with all their might to break these arrows so that no one else would get hurt, but the number was much greater than they thought. These people stood on the mountain and they had fun as other people suffered. Although it seemed very unfair. The man who stood on the mountain told his subordinates to immediately kill absolutely everyone except people from the alliance. After that, he took his horn with which he could give a signal when it was necessary to kill everyone. Thanks to such a powerful signal, one could understand that he would do all this thanks to the power of sound because he wanted to throw stones at them. This is exactly what he did so that these people would not be able to go anywhere further because the most important thing for them was to transfer the cargo, and they do not allow them to do this. A huge number of different objects were flying down very quickly, and this meant that many people could now get hurt. Ordinary warriors who simply worked to receive a reward did not understand why they sacrificed their lives all the time because they are not to blame. A huge number of people ran out to meet them and wanted to kill them because they had orders from above. The head shouted for them to immediately stop these people. After all, they will now do everything to kill every warrior. A huge number of people began to offend them in order to end the existence of another order because for them this was the most important thing. People began to fight like real wars because it was to protect their unit and also to stay alive so that they could later talk about such difficult battles. There really were battles, and they were simple because everyone had to sacrifice themselves so that the next one could accomplish everything. Unfortunately, the girl could not tolerate all this, and so she got out of her carriage because she did not like it at all. The princess stepped on the ground, which means that now there will be very bad news that will definitely not suit them. She got out of her carriage in order to decide everything herself now because she was a very experienced warrior who could change everything. The girl didn't understand what was happening here and felt that she needed to deal with it all immediately because she didn't like this battle. People began to die right before her eyes, so she felt that she had to stop everything immediately at any cost. The warriors began to die one after another due to the fact that they had no control over what they were doing, but the guy calmly dealt with them. Unfortunately, many people began to die, despite the fact that they did not deserve this at all, but such was life. This guy got even more angry because he didn't want to see innocent people die, so he feels that now he will kill them. The girl noticed that this guy was using the very famous Six Fists technique, which was not very popular at all but quite strong. The girl shouted at him to be as careful as possible because he was being attacked, but the guy was very careful and knew what he was doing. She was very worried about him because he was not quite like an ordinary worker to her, and she had very strange feelings for him. After that, he began to attack his opponent in order to finish him immediately. The girl saw all this and understood that this guy was much stronger than she could have imagined. And the girl saw a lot of her life, and I'm telling you that this guy is strong enough, but she couldn't believe that he was so good. Unfortunately, the girl was watching it all very closely and could not at all notice how a new enemy had already appeared behind her. Luckily, she was able to react, and with the help of her super abilities which she trained with her father, she was able to fight back. With the help of her dagger, the girl made a very strong blow directly to the chest of her opponent, who very openly attacked her. Such a powerful blow could show that this girl is a completely unusual princess. but she also handles weapons very well. In her head, the girl understood that this guy had to hold out a little longer for reinforcements to come because she was thinking of helping him as soon as possible. Unfortunately, he was left alone surrounded by all these monsters who were ready to finish him off for every second of his life. Lee Son understood that this would not work at all, and there were too many of them so she could cope with just one technique. He gathered all his strength into a fist and understood that if he didn't do it now, he would never be able to do it. That is why he took all his power directly into his fist, which was already with flames, and he was ready to show them all that he was a real warrior. The fire that came from him showed that he was worthy of the highest awards that no one had even dreamed of. This guy pushed himself off the ground to attack them all and knock everyone out with just one blow. He jumped straight down to immediately attack because he understood that everything starts from the roots. Such a powerful guy was able to knock out a very dangerous warrior who already had enormous years of experience behind him. He was also able to deal with ordinary guys who were sent to this task without asking their opinion at all. He really was a very dangerous warrior with whom it would be better not to mess with because he turned out to be completely invincible. No one understood what it was all about. This guy was able to deal with these people so easily. These people did not want to give up just like that, so they were ready to continue the battle despite the fact that they had already suffered very heavy losses. The guy stood in front of them and they began to worry very much because besides the guy there were also two experienced masters. These masters were ready to give everything to save their people. After all, they were real military men who showed their skills. One of them started screaming first because he wanted to prove that now he would show his power and these warriors would pay very heavily for attacking them during the campaign. His assistant, who arrived from the Alliance, no longer wanted to endure all this and therefore got angry in order to show him the truth. These two warriors began to fight against a huge number of guys who had weapons, but they did not understand at all what kind of people were standing in front of them. They very much regretted that they came to this task because these people were able to show who is really a strong warrior and who is just a loser. Those people who survived began to flee because they understood that if they did not do this, they would also end up dead. With great happiness, these people were able to win, and they began to celebrate due to the fact that they all worked as a team like real troops. The girl and her friend were also happy because they had suffered a very difficult battle in which they were able to prove that they were also good warriors. The rest still ran to catch them because the punishment that awaited them only God himself knows. The princess ordered them not to follow them because the wounded had to be taken care of first. And so they accepted the order and did not run again. The person who corrected it all watched all this and understood that it was all very strange, but someday they would be able to change history. They thought about what they should do now because they understood that they were completely unable to complete the mission, and because of this they would be very severely punished. How could these people not fully understand why these people fought in just one place and did not go anywhere because most likely they were bringing something very important to him? This person was able to understand that these people were guarding only one carriage and therefore it was necessary to find out what was in that carriage. They thought that most likely there were unusual materials there, and that there was more there and therefore they had every reason to attack them again. This man also began to observe people who fought all the time like real warriors and never made a mistake at all. This man could not understand what kind of bastards were standing in front of him because they fought much stronger than ordinary men. Unfortunately, these people could not be informed that there are such powerful waves here that it is better not to mess with them, because they are much stronger. These people were thinking about what to do next, but this man said that they should immediately report this to the master. A little time passed, and with great happiness everyone remained the same and no major losses occurred. And some more warriors realized that another alliance could not do anything, so they had to do it themselves. The man in the mask could not understand at all what it was and how this could happen. After all, this guy is something. The young master noticed how some masked people were sitting, and he did not understand who they were, but his assistant said that it looked like they were one of the clan of 1,000 killers. Young master, I already knew a lot about the fact that the clan of 1,000 killers does bad things, but for it to come to this is already too much. His assistant said that most likely they were hired by the great master from another order who hates the order of the cloudy sky. The young master became very interested in all this, and he even thought about what to do with all this. The young master noticed that there were indeed very talented warriors there who could teach him another lesson and also serve in his favor. After such a difficult situation they should everyone rest and also heal some people who suffered greatly during the battle. The princess understood that they had a lot of wounded left with whom something immediately needed to be done because they felt very bad. The head said that since they were fighting against one of the most powerful alliances in sword martial arts, they were very lucky. The girl said that it was true, but it was still very difficult for her to look after people who were not visibly injured. Head Wang understood that most likely they did not give up so easily and therefore they have another circumstance with the help of which they will begin to attack. The princess decided to look back and think what was happening there because she saw that something strange was really happening there. She noticed that two people were constantly fighting near the same container and they were acting very strange and suspicious. She noticed that they were really some strange people, so something had to be done with them in order to have complete control over the situation. After that they continued on their journey because they understood that their road was not the easiest and therefore they needed to complete everything in perfect condition. They drove as quickly as possible to get to their destination. They were still very far away and therefore they had to follow it. The princess sat in her carriage all the time and thought about what she should do now. After all, she understood that a huge number of people had suffered and they also had a hard time fighting. She saw the very guy who she really liked walking next to her, but she tried to hide it with all her might so that no one could find out about it. She was very happy that this man was not hurt because it was clear from her that she really had already fallen in love with him in this short time. This guy was able to see that this girl was really looking at him all the time, and this gave him some more strange sensations. He told his friend that the princess looks like a flower when she laughs and he really likes to watch her. The girl waved from the window because she was very friendly and kept in touch with them all the time even though they were of different levels of income. The guy noticed that this girl was really very beautiful and she was completely unusual and a real princess. The girl who was their friend really didn't like the fact that they were always discussing the princess. She also saw a girl. After that, they continued to travel along their route, but in the meantime, these people were able to learn something. The young master approached him to find out everything about this mission because he had to be aware of everything. He approached these people in order to find out who they really were and took his hand in order to find out their real face. He was able to pull off the blanket in which they were wrapped in order to see who these people really were and where they came from. He was able to remove the mask from them with the help of this. He saw that these people were not at all simple and they were much more interesting than he thought. It was some very strange warrior who did not have very long hair but also had a beard. Many people already knew about this man that he was a leader killer about whom there were many legends since he was already a very experienced fighter. But this man continued to remain silent because he served only one person and he did not like to communicate with anyone. The young master held him on his lap and realized that he could control his life now, so he better talk to him. The young master wanted to know where he was hired from. After all, he wanted to fully know the whole situation in order to figure out who was right and who was wrong. This man understood that in front of them now stood a young gentleman with whom it would be very difficult for him to communicate because he could take away all the information from him. He didn't answer him, but the young master said that he was so smart that he could even guess that it was this experienced warrior who asked what he wanted. And he didn't want to betray his superiors or start serving some other person. The young master told him to come back. And this is not something they can do. This person didn't understand what he was talking about at all. The young master said that he would sort this out later. But for now they should leave this place immediately because otherwise they could cause a lot of problems. This is yours. He didn't understand where he got so much information from and why this guy is so smart and how he knows all this. The young master understood that this man would not obey him. Therefore he had to use his status in order not to get his hands dirty. He waved his hand so that the very warriors with whose help he would not need anything at all appeared in front of him. There really were a lot of warriors and they seemed like some kind of incredible killers who had been trained to kill since childhood. This man didn't understand what these people were like and where they came from because he didn't see anyone here. The young master ordered them to leave here immediately because they had already risked their lives very much, so they had enough for today. This man never liked to obey anyone, so he thought that if I did it myself now it would be a fatal mistake. He got up with his man to leave here since they had already spent a lot of time on a long journey and they immediately needed to rest. The The young master told his subordinate to immediately tell the second agency that they should not do such bad things, and he had already taken care of it himself. The young master understood that he could not have other people take his booty because this was what he wanted to take for himself. This man thought that most likely there was something in the carriage that he did not know at all, so he had to get this carriage. It was already quite dark, and people were thinking about how to rest because the working day had been hard. They sat by the fire because they wanted to rest after all this, because the road was not the easiest with these bandits. Lee Sung lay down and was able to notice something that made him really think about what he saw in front of him. He felt that someone was calling him, but he could not at all understand who it was, and therefore he felt somehow very scared. It was already very dark outside, and therefore no one advised leaving the camp because otherwise you could get hurt. Unfortunately, he didn't listen to anyone at all and therefore went forward to completely understand for himself because he was not afraid of anyone at all. He walked along the path and he didn't care that he was now alone in the middle of the forest, although absolutely anyone could attack him. After he arrived at one point, he noticed that in the forest there was a man with very long black hair. When a person stood with his back to him and wanted to find out who this guy really was and where he got such powerful power, Lee Sung wanted to find out who was standing in front of him, but it was too dangerous to do this because it was the first time he had ever seen this person since it was still night and they were in the forest. The man who stood with his back to him began to ask the factory for this guy Son because he wanted to get to know him better. The guy said that they said everything correctly, but he would also like to ask who was talking to him. The young master said that he called him because he was interested in him because he just doesn't communicate with ordinary people. The guy turned around and left because he was not interested at all, but this man said that if he was looking for his master then he should stay. Lee Son could not believe at all that this man knew his master, and most likely this could lead him to good results. The young master promised him that he would look for his master only if he did something. The young master said that if his master is alive then he can find him within a month, and for him it is not worth any difficulty. Lee Sung asked how he could pay for such a good request because for him it was the meaning of life. The young master said that before they talked to him, he should check to see what he is capable of in general. He pushed himself off the ground to start a battle with him because he understood that he needed to work very hard with this guy. The battle must have been very difficult because both opponents knew how to fight correctly and each of them felt that he was stronger than the other. The young master was already ready to attack first and thought that he had already succeeded, but I was there. He pushed the guy and he felt very heavily the pain that this man could inflict on him. But after a few seconds he was able to dodge in the same way, and with this he felt that he could now strike back. The young master said that it was very good, and now he was ready to test it again, only with a more complex technique. He activated the blow that he had right with his flammable hand, which in principle was similar to the moment when Son himself fought against a large number of people. The young master accelerated with all his might to fight against this guy, and it is clear what this guy is even capable of. The battle began, and his opponent, who was a young gentleman, attacked very well with his fist, which flew out more than once. The opponents fought very well, and each of them tried their best to win, but since the young master was stronger, he was able to deliver a strong blow to his chest. This blow was so strong that it could completely tear his clothes, and therefore the guy did not even know how to continue the battle. He stepped back and felt that in this battle it would be really very difficult for him, and he found an equal opponent. The young master was very upset because he thought that most likely he greatly overestimated this guy. Still, he was able to understand that this person was able to withstand this blow, and that was pretty good because everyone usually dies. The guy began to get very nervous because he noticed that his clothes were completely destroyed. The young master said that if he felt sorry for the torn clothes, then he could buy them so he shouldn't worry. Lee Sung said that he would not allow him to leave just like that, so he must pay for everything I did, and now he will punish him. The guy was ready to do everything to show that he was a good warrior who deserved respect, and therefore he had to apologize to him. Because he began to do what no one understood, but only he himself knew that it was the right decision, with the help of which he could change everything. Because what he did next turned out to be very strange, but he also released the fist technique, which the young gentleman already knows a lot about. The young master could not believe that this was true and that some person even managed to do such a technique. After all, no one had ever taught such a thing. Such a strong attack forced him to immediately fight back, and so the young master did everything to survive. Such strong resistance showed that these rivals were worth each other, and therefore this battle could go down in history. He was able to deliver an accurate blow directly to his opponent's head, and the young master greatly underestimated him. The young master said that he would simply pay for everything he had done, and he had never received such a strong blow before. The young master could not believe that someone could strike him so hard and this person had to pay for it. The young master realized that now he had a really good opponent who could teach him a lesson and therefore he should not relax. Unfortunately, it was already too late and this guy began to attack him from all sides in order to somehow win about this fight. He was able to deliver another precise blow to him right in the neck, so that the opponent felt that he was not in control of the situation at all. After that, he decided to hit him directly in the stomach so that he would fly as far as possible. The young master felt very strong pain and realized that now he would have to punish this guy who believed in himself. Lee Sung told his opponent to never do that again, and this time he forgives him. We won't do it again. After that, the guy began to return home and realized that now he was just wasting his time on trifles. He would have been very upset, but the young gentleman stood up and watched him for years, and could not believe at all that our man was able to give him a lesson. The young lord began to get very angry and did not understand how this could happen because he was one of the best warriors. He felt that anger was completely in his body and he would do everything to punish this person later. Meanwhile, the sun was still far away and the night continued to be just as long due to the fact that the guy did not go to sleep but began to fight. He felt that his clothes were completely ruined and he didn't know at all what to say now about his homeland because such clothes had been issued more than once. He went home and realized that he had caused a lot of problems for himself because now he might not be allowed in with such clothes. He also understood that the girl would scold him for the fact that he looked so ugly and beaten and also did not ask permission to leave. He recalled that just recently this girl gave him this suit and told him to wear it very carefully. And he treated her so badly. The girl looked at him with huge eyes and said that it suited him very much because she really loved him very much. He thought about sewing it up, but he had to understand that everything has a lifespan. Unfortunately, the life of these clothes has already come to an end. And suddenly the guy heard screams appear in front of him like someone asking for help because someone was attacked by enemies. He realized that most likely thieves had come to him again, so he immediately had to do everything to save people. He ran with all his might to come to his base and save people who needed it as well. Unfortunately, they again had a battle that they had to fight because each cargo transport was very expensive. They tried with all their might to fight against these people, but they had to understand that they were not completely eternal. Therefore, everyone had their own weak points that their enemies could take advantage of. Head Wong tried with all his might to save his people, but you had to understand that you will not always live because you have enemies. The head tried to fight with all his might, but he was not at all able to fight all these enemies himself, so he needed the help of this man. The head was very experienced, so he calmly dealt with his rivals who stood in his way, but he hated them. It was quite difficult for him to fight with them, but he understood that if he did not do so, then no one would be able to help their order. Thanks to the fact that he had vast years of experience behind him, he was able to fight calmly and did not even feel discomfort. He was able to defeat all these warriors who stood in his way and dealt with them correctly. The head shouted for them to immediately stop them and not approach the carriage because otherwise the princess could be very seriously injured. He also told them not to retreat, because if they do this, then they will no longer consider themselves men. But to her great surprise, the girl herself began to fight. Everything worked out great for her. She didn't need anyone's help at all. Absolutely every warrior attacked her, but she didn't care because her father was a very experienced person. She saw with her own eyes how they began to attack her from all sides, and therefore she immediately needed defense. But fortunately, the girl was so experienced that she was able to cope with it all herself. These warriors tried to do everything to defeat this girl, but they could not imagine that she was such a great warrior who did everything herself. This ninja did not understand how this could even happen and how this girl could finish off his friends who had trained with him for a bunch of years. The battle continued, but no one benefited from it, and therefore everyone had to immediately do something to stop it. The girl fought against ordinary warriors. For her, it was only entertainment and also a demonstration of her skills that she trained. Her friend was also an excellent master who didn't care at all who stood in his way because he could cut off anyone's head. The girl was very angry and used her ball to destroy everyone's arms and legs because the most important thing for her was to survive. Red said that he would immediately kill everyone who approached him, and because of this the warriors began to fear him even more. This couple was simply unique and they seemed somehow incredible. Everyone was afraid of her and no one stopped on their way. The girl said that they should hold out at least a little while their friend is not here because he should come to help the two of them and they won't be able to cope with this at all. The masters could not believe that they were attacked for the second time during this campaign, and this made them very nervous since they had to guard this map all the time. The killers said that they would not tell them at all why they attacked them because it was not their business at all. He ordered his ninja to attack as quickly as possible because these killers had to finish this whole thing as quickly as possible. After all, it was not supposed to last forever. Unfortunately, the situation was really very difficult, and they were all surrounded near this container, which one of them had recently suspected. The masters tried to defend themselves with all their might, but they had to understand that they could not be on their feet all the time and they needed a change. Luckily, someone managed to throw stones and knocked out several fighters who were heading in that direction. This gave great strength to continue the battle and no longer be afraid of these people. The guy and his mother somehow managed to throw stones at them from a great distance very competently, and it turned out to be some kind of miracle because no one could do this. These people were killed in just seconds and no one understood where these stones were flying from. The head of these killers ordered that they be as careful as possible because they do not know at all where this person is who is throwing at them. But the most important thing for them was to look up because this guy was already right above them and now they will pay for everything they did. And the red-haired man did not understand what their friend was doing there and how he managed to kill several people with stones from a great distance. And his girlfriend also couldn't believe her eyes that it was her friend who didn't understand what he was doing at all. The guy continued to fight against these people who were very dangerous for him, and he wanted to save everyone who was dear to him. With the help of his six fists tactics, he was able to take out one of them, and this man paid very heavily for being born in the first place. He couldn't understand at all how this was possible and why he even succeeded because he thought that everything was much simpler here. This guy in some unusual way could kill all these people who stood in his way and because of this received good bonuses. The girl couldn't believe how to do it. She could use such a simple technique, but she could also kill a huge number of people who stood in their way. His friend would also be shocked that he was doing all this at all and thought the fact was that this guy trained these techniques very hard. People continued to fight and each of them felt very bad due to the fact that there were already a large number of wounded who were not visible at all and were dying here. Still, these people decided to think with their own heads and said that it was time for them to retreat from here. Their head ordered that they need to take the wounded and only then should they run away from here because they can't abandon their own. People started running away from here because they risked their lives very much and therefore they did everything to escape. The girl said that they shouldn't follow them now because they have a much more important task than just killing some stupid people. He understood that if it had not been that bad guy, then he would have been able to come here much earlier and fewer people would have been hurt. The girl and her friend began to run towards him and did not understand what he was doing here at all and why he had gone so far that he had come so late. The girl was glad that this man was not bleeding and therefore he realized that now the most important thing was to save people who were not guilty of anything at all. Unfortunately, there were still dead and therefore it was necessary to bury them very competently. After all, they deserved it. Princess started asking this normal person, "You will find yours is definitely burdened by something." The head began to apologize because he had already been attacked for the second time. He didn't know what to do with it because he was taking a lot of risks. The girl said that there was nothing special about it and therefore he should just treat his wounds well because he was already very tired. He accepted my order and also said that in any case he has a 100% guess who could attack them for the second time. The head said that he already knows these people, but for sure he cannot be sure that he attacked them too, but soon he will be able to find out then. The girl understands that those two were still very strange and they behaved differently. These people were very suspicious and you couldn't take your eyes off them because they communicated with each other in a very strange way. She still wanted to find out what was in that carriage because it simply did not give her peace. She understood that most likely if this was some very important carriage they wouldn't know about it because these two were guarding it all the time. She thought about going up to them and finding out what was there because it couldn't stop her. But suddenly they were surprised that this girl was moving towards them, and I don't understand that most likely this is a new threat that needs to be avoided. She was already standing next to them, but they didn't quite understand what she was doing. These two began to worry very much. The girl said that the time had finally come for them to tell everyone the truth because they could not hide it for so long. They couldn't understand what this girl was talking about and were thinking about how to hide it all. She was able to understand everything herself and reminded them that they were always guarding some carriage that was traveling to the Calianza. But these people said that she did not need to worry about it. The girl said that whoever is responsible for the escort must immediately find out what is in that carriage, otherwise they may lose their heads. This man tried with all his might according to the law to tell this girl that she had absolutely no right to look at what was there. Well, she didn't care. She told him that she did not want to risk her people at all, so they must immediately show what was there. After such information, I didn't want to share anything with her, and I understood that this could cause very large losses. On the other hand, the person said that he would explain everything to this girl because she was not at all aware of what she was saying. After that, she was able to understand that she wanted to be taken around her finger, so she had to do everything to prevent this from happening because otherwise she would look very stupid. This man told her that what was in the carriage was related to the well-being of the leader of the alliance, so she had no right to look at what was there. This man said that it was just top secret, so she wouldn't be able to find out anything from there, and he was very sorry that she was trying to find out everything like that. After such information, the girl realized that she had no right to look there at all, but she felt that she had to find out about it. These people stood in her way and tried with all their might to tell her that she had no right to power there, so she must understand them. The girl said that since they are already in such a situation, they charge them an additional fee, so they should also understand. They accepted her conditions because it was really very important for them to hide everything that was there, because otherwise they would have taken a lot of risks later. Fortunately, they had already come a very long way and arrived at one of the points where they needed to get to in order to deliver this cargo. Finally, they were no longer happy that they had come such a hard way and would be able to rest. The most important people sat in a circle to eat and discuss everything that happened to them along this entire road. The man who had the purple suit said that they wanted them to accompany them to the very end because they were carrying a very expensive cargo. The girl could not understand why this was necessary because it was completely necessary, and therefore they still had to accept these conditions. The girl said that if this does not happen, then the heavenly demon palace may suspect something, and this could be a very bad result for them. The girl understood that they were simply feeding her arguments, and therefore she had no chance to grasp the truth. The man insisted on his own and said that he was 100% sure that the head would agree with him. After all, this cargo was very important. Still, she agreed and understood that this was indeed a very important mission for them, so she even agreed with them without ceasing to argue. He was very happy that they were able to solve everything on this because for them this was indeed a very important task. The girl did not feel completely confident and understood that most likely something was wrong here, but she had no other choice but to agree. After that, they tried to rest after such a hard journey. After all, they had already spent quite a lot of resources while getting here, and people all the time guarded the very thing that the girl was talking about because it was impossible for even an ordinary person to know about it. But this legendary Troika always wanted to know everything and everywhere. Therefore, she did not care at all what the others thought. They tried to unravel this whole mystery and find out what was there because they were very interested in it. The guy suggested that most likely there was no alcohol there, although it was so suspicious that perhaps it could also be there. The girl and the guy continued to argue because they always liked to say different things to each other in order to prove that he was better than the other. And the girl told him to calm down immediately because otherwise she would be able to get a poisonous snake and shove it right into his mouth. The guy started to get smart and said that the white snake is the kindest among snakes, so it was better not to touch it. They all didn't like the fact that he turned out to be some kind of nerd and kept saying some stupid phrases. Suddenly someone turned to them. But the trio didn't understand at all what they were and what they wanted from them, and yet they had already been very scared all this time. He said that they accompany this whole thing because they are very good warriors who have earned trust, and that's why they are on the road all the time. A very strange man appeared in front of them who had two blades at once, and clearly he was not the simplest person in this world. Red began to ask him who he really was and why he was here. This man kept saying that he is much better than them, but he does it in such a way as to deliberately hurt their feelings and not seem so in charge. Red kept telling him to close his job because he was already tired of him and was always trying to tell him how cool he was. This man said that he is a very smart guy from one of the most famous clones in the world, so they should immediately apologize to him because he is very much a student of Weisang.